Hey there, goblins. Welcome to Goblin Salvage Rights. My name's Robert,
And I'm Erik.
and today we are talking about the brand new
Monster
Monster
Core.
It is beautiful. Erik got the special pencil version, the sketchbook version. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
They're all going to be like that on my shelf. And when I finally get them all on my shelf, I'm not going to have them like this. I'm just going to have them presented like this.
That's a
I'm
wide
going to need
shelf.
more shelves.
That's a wide
That's
shelf.
a big ass shelf.
You can hide other books behind it. If you get a deep shelf, you can put this behind. Now we're thinking with her. Now we're thinking with portals. So this is like a top 10. What are our favorite things? We're going to kind of gloss over really quickly.
Yep.
Some major changes that happened to the book.
And this is Goblin math. So it's my 5, his 5. That gets us to
Added
10.
together. Added makes 10. And I really think that there's a lot of interesting small changes that have changed that kind of add up to be a lot bigger than they seem.
Mhm.
So we're going to kind of like gloss over them in the beginning of the pod. And then we'll probably come out with another video that's going to go into them more in depth later on.
I would like that very much because there is so much more in this book beyond just the monster stat blocks.
Absolutely.
And it just surprised me. And I didn't even learn that until I started making this list.
Exactly. But before we get into the topic of today's episode, we got to do two things. One, thank our newest patron.
We have a new patron. Oh,
Coup de Gras.
coup de grace.
I asked them how to pronounce their name, and I knew there was going to be a meme in there somewhere.
Yeah,
So, Coup de Gras, thank you so much. Welcome to the tribe.
Welcome to the tribe. We love you.
And then secondly, we got to talk about what we played, Erik.
What we played. Well, it certainly wasn't my game because I'm still on hiatus
That's
until
true.
literally this coming Saturday.
That's true, but we're all hype. We're all hype
Yep.
for the fucking cops.
The making of kings.
Exactly. So yeah, Kingmaker happened again. We're in the middle of like a time transitionary phase where
Yeah, we're jumping forward like 6 months or something like that. And we're
Yeah.
sort of figuring what happens just before that time
Mhm.
jump.
we're at the end of book 1, beginning of book 2. We're
Mhm.
founding our kingdom. And part of that is the players have decided generally what area they want the kingdom to be in. But now they're reconnoitering the reconnaître the areas around the main lake
Yep.
to see what portion of the area they want to make their like capital city.
Yeah, it's a hex crawl in which we are making buildings and alliances.
Mhm.
And I don't know if y'all can see this map right here, but there's a bunch of hexes
Yeah.
on it. This is a Kingmaker map. So we're supposed to like point to a 10 hex mile area. I think it is
12 square mile. Yeah.
12 square
yeah,
miles
yeah,
per hex.
yeah.
Okay. Math.
Math.
And point to it and say, yup, this is where we want to
That's
be.
the one.
The thing is, this is going to determine so much going forward. So we're really
Yeah.
hesitant to pick which hex we want.
It will and it won't. I think that the players are putting a lot of emphasis on it,
Mhm.
and that means it'll have a lot of emphasis going forward.
Yeah.
The book doesn't. The book gives you like it gives you like a natural bonus to the square you choose.
Yeah.
And you get like a free little building.
See,
for
we
each
have a charter
square.
to build within a certain area,
Yeah.
and we're picking hexes outside that area as possibilities
That's
to
true.
settle.
It's true.
And that's I don't know, man. We're supposed to be playing by the rules.
You're the
here.
colonials. You get to westwardly expand as much as you
Right.
want.
This is the new border. This is now Greenbelt.
Exactly.
Ma'am, I need you to move your mud hut about 3 miles down the road.
I'm so glad they ran into a witch-like woman. And I'm so happy that they didn't go full murder hobo. Which
I totally thought she was going to eat our new gnome.
And I was totally expecting you guys to do exactly what you did, which is talk your way through.
You think you know
the
us.
witch,
Okay, you might know
quote
us.
unquote witch, and she's just like an old crotchety lady that
Yeah.
you can win over and
Invited us in for tea and biscuits and some
Literally.
crazy mushroom stew.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of the text, all of the text you have to read
Mhm.
is like begging you to think that she's a witch.
Yeah.
But not saying it specifically.
Well, yeah, and this thing came out so long ago when it was
Mhm.
like, trope this and trope that and trope these and trope those that,
Exactly.
old woman that lives by the seashore out in the great wilds with fae
Subversion,
everywhere.
baby. Subversion.
Yeah, the whole thing screamed hag, but she
Yeah.
wasn't a hag,
No, not at all.
or at least
Not yet.
not. You're right. We don't know what she is, but she was friendly.
Yeah, yeah. So
I still think she's gonna eat the gnome.
we had a pretty good time.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. Your games are just they're just fun. It feels weird and condescending to say your games are fun now, Robert, but and that's not how I mean it. But they're really fun.
Yeah.
And I think it's a combination of just like you've been a player for all these years, and now so much of your dedicated RPG time seems to be running a game,
Yeah.
hiding on that side of the screen. It just feels like your muscles are getting bigger and bigger and bigger,
Thank you.
and that lets me kind of just sit back and drink a little bit more and enjoy the ride more than you know.
I'm
otherwise would've.
definitely advancing very quickly as a DM
Mhm.
because I've never really DM'd a lot of long campaigns.
Right.
And they're normally one shots where I
Mhm.
have them all mapped out ahead of time.
Sure.
And so running
Quick
something
in,
that
quick
is
out.
intimidating as Kingmaker with all this
Overhead.
backstory,
So much
yeah.
overhead.
It's probably the worst adventure path to learn how
To
to
start?
DM again.
Right.
So
That's deep end of the pool with piranhas.
exactly. Yeah, and I have a bunch of incredible players. So
Yeah, if we do say so ourselves.
yeah, I think you're pretty good players. Not gonna lie.
And we
So, yeah.
certainly get along well together.
Absolutely,
And your players, we know each other's styles.
Yes.
So you know,
And the styles
that's
mesh
bringing
very
down the
well.
overhead.
The styles mesh so well.
Yeah.
Like,
And hopefully we're giving you room to like tell your story and not like stomping all over it and saying, do it our way, do it our way, do it our way.
well, sometimes Erik tries to make his own story in my game.
I just
but
tried an olive branch.
you gotta push it back a little bit.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? You gotta put Erics of the world in their place.
You got to put me in my place because I won't stay there. I'm hopped up on sugar, Ma. I'm coming at you like a spider monkey.
I honestly, it does a lot of when you have those players that write when you have those players that write like 10,000 page backstories or whatever, 10,000 word backstories.
7,000.
This is only 7,000. Okay. You need to do your best to pick and choose from where they are.
Yeah.
I think, and in my experience, if I'm not very direct and clear about where your backstory fits into the story, your character, you as a player begin making these assumptions that it's here and there.
Totally.
And I'm trying to do my best to actually pull the rug as much as I can and be like, actually, your backstory cropped up here. And I want you to be surprised about it. Because, I feel like if you write your own backstory, you need to, I would want, as a player, if I put a lot of work into my own backstory, I would want to be surprised at where it shows up in the game.
Yeah.
But
I totally get that. Yeah. And I think the reason why I do so much with my backstory is because historically, my characters never mattered in a single game I've ever played. And it's like, if the GM's not going to write my backstory for me, in a perfect world, I wouldn't write a goddamn thing. I would show up with the character sheet and then you would have all my surprises and twists and turns.
But the thing is, you've written a character. I know we're going really long on your character and Kingmaker.
This entire episode is about your game.
All right. But you've done the kind of character you've written. Obviously, you read the Adventurer's Guide and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The anti-fae, broken old man kind of trope. That literally writes itself into the game to the point where I honestly don't have to do that much work. And you're like, oh, this is like it's written for me. And it's like, yeah, because you basically wrote
I was
your
trying to
character
keep
for
that
the game.
load as light as possible on you.
You did an amazing job. Cool. I'm just saying, you did an amazing job. Yeah.
Goblin pets.
Yeah. All right.
So
let's
long
jump into
story
this.
short, too late. Kingmaker was a blast, and I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, let's jump into the topic now that we're 30 minutes in already.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, and that Kingmaker is a part of this conversation because you're going to be using a lot of these monsters going forward.
That's true.
And there's new rules for a lot of these monsters and new points of emphases for a lot of these monsters.
Yeah. I mean, kobolds, kobolds are a major part of. So kobolds have changed.
Again.
They're constantly changing in the world of
They're
Golarion.
dogs. No, wait. They're little dragons. No, wait. They don't have to involve dragons.
They can be
They
dragons,
just need magical things around them.
But they're not necessarily dragons. So kobolds.
Pathfinder 3, they're going to be space kobolds.
Hell yeah. So basically kobolds are dragon-like, but in the egg, they absorb the magical energies from what's around them.
Osmosis, baby.
And pull that into their styling. So they look like the little tiny shark-headed dragons, but the one in the book has crystals growing on it because it absorbed a lot of earth energies.
Right. Whatever powers they were next to as they were sort of like gestating, that determines how they pop out. Yeah. And I really like that because if you want to play like a Chernobyl disaster style kobold, that's like what was that cartoon back in the 90s? I know you weren't born yet. The the Toxic Avenger, where he was like a total mutant and he just like mopped up the high school gym. You can play a kobold like that, and it's just like wherever your egg was when you were gestating. What could that be? Could that be like an occult, bank with a bunch of occulty items floating around?
Someone just like put a fucking a kobold egg in a safety deposit box, and it just it hatched in the safety deposit box and absorbed all this random magical energy from what's in a bank.
Sure. Yeah.
That's actually that sounds like a really cool backstory.
You can go so many different ways with it.
And what I love about this is this lore that we've created via the book, the Monster Core, which you assume to be a GM only kind of item.
Right.
You know, this is affecting how we make our kobolds as players.
Yeah.
You know
yeah, it really
mean?
is.
So this is really important information for not just players, but GMs. That's why I think players should always own all the books. But seriously, they should at least own the first monster manual. So you have a good idea. Like, you should read the monster manual.
Yeah.
Don't metagame, kids, but you should read the monster manual and have a good understanding of what the kind of abilities the opponents have.
It teaches you how monsters work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, you should know how monsters work so you can play the game effectively. Obviously, you don't metagame the knowledge that you've read about the monsters, but you understand how they're designed to be played. You understand a lot of the tropes and assumptions about monsters and things like that, and things that you wouldn't assume that maybe you
and for kobold specifically, since you're using that example, if I'm building a kobold and I read the kobold entry, I think there's like 3 different kinds of kobolds in here, maybe 4 or 5, I don't know, however many there are, that the special abilities that they each have will show you where their emphases are in combat. And that will show me, well, kobolds seem to be like ranged little buggers, and they like to do the hide thing, and they like to do the, be somewhere out of reach and then pepper with attacks and then go find somewhere else to be out of reach. That's a particular style of combat. Now, if you're going to be playing like a barbarian kobold, sure, that changes things a bit. But there's what does it mean to be kobold?
They did keep their trap focus,
which I really appreciated.
Yeah,
that goes all the way back to like first edition kobolds.
Yeah. I love that they're holding on to little golden cows here and there.
Yeah,
paying homages to the IP of old while also forging ahead. Another silence your phone, boy.
I took this thing down all the way multiple times and it's on mute.
So grab. This is a pretty big change. Grab has changed. Before, it was the grab ability basically said if you got an attack, you could spend an action and automatically have grappled your opponent. Now it's you'd have to take an action and you have to roll the athletics check, but it doesn't incur the multiple attack bonus. So that's pretty important. But yeah, so that's grab in a nutshell. Also, the pushback or whatever, they've used reposition, which is a new action we talked about in one of our videos.
God, I got to keep getting reminded that thing even exists.
Yeah, so now that uses athletics via reposition. Same idea, map. You don't have to automatically, there's no hitting and then automatically doing the thing. You just use the ability and you use a reposition athletics check and then push them or whatever. But it doesn't incur map, which is really cool. Yeah, the only other notes, I have like honorable mentions that we'll talk about.
Sure, I'm not ready for those yet because I got a couple like pre-honorable mentions, things to talk about.
Honorable. Jesus, how long is this video going to be, Erik?
I know. I'm telling you, man, this is sort of like the dark horse of my collection right now. And so... Dark horse. Okay, so bear with me here. They talk about content warnings in the beginning of the book.
Oh, I have a note about this.
We kind of know what's coming just by hearing that, and that's totally fine. Content warnings are a session 0 must have. Does anybody have any problems with these half a dozen issues? I'll read them off real quick. Alcohol, drugs, animal cruelty, body horror experimentation, cannibalism, child abuse, disordered eating, drowning, suffocation, gambling, gore, needles, pandemic, epidemic, sexual assault, suicide, torture. Now, those make sense. We get that because we're not shitty, fucked up, impossible human beings. But if you noticed, next to each of them, they actually listed monsters in the book that are where those themes are hard-coded into those monsters.
I'm pretty sure we are literally coming to the same note.
Yeah.
Which is, you can, while these content warnings are important, you should definitely talk to your players about using them, especially in session 0. You can also use this as a list of monsters to lean into these content types.
So like if we're playing Edgewatch and player 1 has a problem with alcohol and substance abuse, ooh, I got some monsters to throw into their specific storyline.
Exactly.
Player 2 over here has a problem with cannibalism. I don't know. Cannibalism. Oh, ghouls, kolos, which are hyena boys. Gnolls. Thank you. They're called kolos now. I got to get used to the new nomenclature. So, it's ghouls, kolos, ogres, clippets, and yetis. that's a lot of monsters to pull from.
Absolutely.
And I don't have the levels yet, but it doesn't matter. So I really appreciated that call to attention on the content warnings for both of those reasons right there. What was that your note?
Literally verbatim.
Yeah.
Like use an X card, but also leverage this list to like push on buttons that are important story notes in your game.
And it's a little disturbing on how many of these examples demons show up.
Yeah.
And they're in all of our games. And we just cartoon the fuck out of demons.
Yeah.
But they're really dark and they just don't get played that way.
The problem is they're too dark. But
so why do we keep using them?
Well, because
we don't use devils, we use demons.
Well, they're cartoonishly dark.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's the difference between when you run something cartoonishly dark, it is easy for us to kind of separate ourselves from how evil it is because it's just so pure evil. It's not relatable at all.
Sure.
But the second you bring it closer and closer to that relatable side of the spectrum, that's when it's really nasty. You know what I mean? And a couple of my monsters have picks related to this. So yeah, we're definitely gonna be.
I noticed they pulled the bunyip, which was totally iconic and classic. That was a little feel bad for me.
Well, it might also just be in other like monster cores. You know what I mean?
It's in the bestiary 1 for Pathfinder 2nd edition, so it's not like we don't have one.
Right.
I was just kind of.
But like what I'm trying to say is they could be saving that for later and putting that in later monster cores.
Is there
like
going to be later
3,
monster
4.
cores?
Yeah. No, there's going to
be. I mean, the original presumption was yes, but I thought I heard rumblings that this is it. There will be another trilogy of something else after that.
They're going to make
like
more.
a Book of the Dead monster core.
They're going to make more bestiaries.
Okay.
They have to make more bestiaries.
Yeah, but I won't go into it too much. But like the traditional paradigm of the bestiaries for Pathfinder is Bestiary 1, Bestiary 2, Bestiary 3, and then they themed them, I think, after that. Bestiary 4 was like Lovecraftian Cthulhu type guys. Bestiary 5 was, I forget what it was.
This is like a greatest hits album of all of the bestiaries put together.
1, 2, and 3.
With a bunch of like reflavoring of things like
the stuff you need to be functional, and then some weird, cool, hi, we're Paizo, and this is our stuff.
And like they took out owl bears because apparently the Pinkertons own the IP for bears with owl faces.
Yeah.
And
the orc license kind of determined, it's the reason why why we're even talking about this.
They also own brains with dog arms, I guess. But, real fucking original. But it showed up in a movie somewhere, so apparently now it's legal.
Yeah. Some things I noticed when I just went through all the pages. The Barghest now looks like the Hound of the Baskervilles, which is cool.
They pulled out all the goblin stuff from it.
Did you notice that they repurposed the original Barghest art into another creature elsewhere in this book?
I did not notice that.
Yeah, when you get to the Balor in the demon section, the level 20 demon representative, the Balor used to look like just a large, roided out Gold's Gym with red body paint and like big flaming wings.
Yeah.
But now he looks like the fucking Barghest with shadow knives and, a lot more almost like almost simian. So that was cool. I love the original Barghest artwork, but I get why they kind of like pulled it back and redid it.
I love the fruit bat face, man. The fruit bat face gives me every time.
Well, you've got it in the new not Pit Fiend, but the Balor.
Yeah.
So that was cool. I like that that the archons for the angels, we've been hearing ever since this book came
hitting
out.
all of my notes.
It's the same notes, right? Yeah, and we didn't make these together. We do them separately on purpose. So it sounds like we're in the same space.
Yeah.
We knew this book was going to be more mythological, more Grimm's fairy tales, or like going back to the source material for a lot of this stuff and trying to get away from the Gygaxian, designs of about 40 years ago, which I love. I think is great because I'm a huge mythology buff. And when it comes to things like angels and demons, we've got our what do you call them? Like, I guess Christian mythological critters, right? And the old biblical archons, they look like Lovecraftian horrors. Yeah, that right there is a fucking Barghest. I don't care what you say.
Vrolikai.
Yeah, that's the new Balor.
Yeah.
So these archons, they look like Lovecraftian Cthulhuid horrors, which is to say they look like angels from the original source material. That was I just
love how alien they've made them feel, because to me,
that's the word.
These outer beings that exist on another plane of existence should not look like they come from an environment that I come from.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the angels look like that. And that's okay.
They're from beyond time and space.
Yeah, exactly. So like angels are just like your plain classic.
But not all angels, just like archons specifically.
I know. No, this is what I'm saying. There are 3 different heavens, right? Angels live in the neutral evil. Archons are lawful.
Want to try that again?
Sorry. Angels live in the neutral good.
Uh-huh.
Archons live in the lawful good plane.
Mm-hmm.
And then the furries, they live in the chaotic good plane.
The holy furries, Batman.
The holy furries.
So I really appreciated that because it just made it strange and alien and yet familiar because, hey, we live in America and that's part of the culture here.
I grew up Catholic.
Did you see the middle finger illustration that they did when they redid the monster? Did you look at the pictures?
I look at all the pictures.
We buy this book to look at the pictures, not to read the text.
Listen. All right.
So when they made new critters in there, or they had to like redesign critters, they got new artwork. It's not the same artwork.
Well,
did you look at the purple worm?
Yes. Oh, and the rules lawyer talks about this in his like.
Ronald talked about it, and that's why I went to look at it and I went, "Oh my god, it's right." But wait a minute, why did all the other monsters that got revised have new artwork and this one didn't? They just went from purple to I guess that's
definitely
gray, like a slate gray,
a middle finger.
Yeah, it's one of these.
It's definitely a middle finger. That's fucking beautiful.
That just I love it. The cloaker's gone. I guess we get that. The cockatrice got rid of that stupid chicken kind of motif they used to have. And now it looks more like the source material, like a dinosaur, a small dinosaur.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that really dumb looking ape with the horns in the demon section? Like the Ceusto demon, Ceusto demon or daemon or whatever.
Okay, yeah, sure.
They, I've never liked it.
Oh.
They pulled it and put something else in its place. So the monsters I used to just think were kind of weird or I didn't like them.
Right.
They're gone. And these new ones kind of got slipped in, but we still have them in the old bestiaries that we have, which are still valid.
My only note you haven't covered yet is that they made bugbears thin, which I thought
I didn't even notice that.
Oh,
I completely
did you not even look at the art?
I didn't look at the pictures.
But yeah,
I missed that picture.
So like in my 3rd edition brain basically has bugbears being like really wide, giant,
blocks of
muscular.
brute.
Yeah, exactly. And these bugbears are like,
are they
thin.
svelte?
They're basically like hairy hobgoblins, which is really
they could do a catwalk.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna find them here in the book. I'm not very good at.
I smash your little face on the catwalk.
Arboreal. But yeah, they basically made them thin and they made them a little more cunning than they're still like the very lawful evil Unga Bunga brute, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But they're kind of filling the space of check them out, dude. They look like a rogue. Bugbear Prowler.
They look like really hairy gremlins now.
Yeah.
Like tall hairy gremlins with weird knees.
But they kept the face, like the face still looks like a bugbear.
Yeah.
Except like a thin, more gaunt looking bugbear. And
they all went to the gym together between editions.
Exactly. Yeah. Look, the bugbear looks like a rock climber now.
Did you see the Barbazoo got a new sexy art?
The Barbazoo?
Yeah, the red goat demon with the snake beards.
Oh, fucking snake beards, dude. Every time.
Yeah, well, she doesn't have a snake beard and it looks really hot.
Hell yeah.
So check out the Barbazoo.
Succubus.
Yeah.
Not sexy enough.
Well, I kind of like how they toned it down for it being a lust demon.
That's true.
So that was cool. Yeah, I dig all the art. This guy is cool.
Yeah, the Pusk.
The gluttony demon is just a short, squat little. I count 2.
It's fucking amazing.
I get a vote down here, and what is it?
I do like Goat Horn Daddy.
Yeah,
the brim
arson demon.
Yeah, absolutely. Omox is just goo girl gone mad.
Yeah,
and then the Shemlais.
Yeah. You know, when you use these weird, fucked up names, nobody knows what you're talking about.
Shemhazian.
But they all have like what kind of demon they are.
Mutilation demon.
So the Shemhazion is a mutilation demon.
I love it. This is probably out of all the demon art, that's my favorite.
Yeah. One more thing about demons and devils, and I'm going to shut up about it.
Okay.
The new Balors.
Looks like he's pooping.
Yeah. So in the old lore, if I remember right, they were humans that didn't sort of predominantly do one type of sin. Ooh. They weren't like prideful or wrathful, and that kind of defined them. Mm-hmm. They ran the table on the sins. They did everything. They murdered. They stole. They were prideful. They just acquired everything, and all that happened before they died. And that determined what kind of devil they were going to be turned into once they were in hell. Not anymore. This is like a post-death thing. And they it's more like a Highlander. There can only be one kind of approach, where now that they're dead and they're in hell. Is it hell? That's
devils.
They're in the abyss, which is called some other place now, the outer rifts or something. Mm-hmm. Now that they're whatever they are in the outer rifts, they kill a bunch of sloth devils and they consume that, kill a bunch of lust demons and then consume that. They're basically they're sin eaters. And then as they get more and more and more and more, they sort of just like they get beefier and more powerful, and eventually they turn into that thing. So that was a nice transition between, you know, I'm immortal and I'm destined to become this thing because this is how I sin, which I think is kind of lazy.
Hokey, yeah.
To you know, now that I'm dead, I have some agency in my afterlife, and I can turn into this thing, or I can turn into that thing, or I can turn into this thing, or I can turn into these things. So that almost makes me want to do like a post-death, you know, game just right there, where everybody's a certain kind of critter based on the plane of existence that you're in. I really hope that was deliberate and that's the direction they're going, because I thought that was super cool.
Do you have any more honorable mentions?
I do, but I'm just going to shut up about it because I want to talk about my 5 things.
Okay, we are like 30 minutes into the pod already. So.
We were into 30 minutes like 20 minutes ago.
True. That's true.
All right, so that's what I've got there.
Yeah.
How shall we transition awkwardly?
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Why don't you start? I've been talking a lot and I need a drink.
That way you can be last?
Yeah.
Ooh, final word. All right, cool. Page 308. So again, just a reminder, I have not DM'd that much. A lot of these are monsters I've never really read about. I've seen their picture before. I knew they existed.
Sure, same.
But like, I didn't know that.
Right, page for page, reading the entry.
Exactly.
Not a thing I do.
Not a thing I do. So my number 5 is Shining Child.
That's a classic. God, how far back does that go?
I don't know. I've never heard, like, this is a new concept to me.
Was that Rise of the Rune Lords?
Maybe. I've been a player most of my life.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah. So Shining Child is like this very pale, childlike humanoid being, but then with like 2 holes for eyes.
Yeah,
and
like the movie
mouth.
Scream. It's like the Scream mask.
Yeah, exactly. And the Shining Child is fascinating to me. First off, they've got great art and a mix of amazing lore with an interesting fight. That's kind of like the 3 things I was basically looking at these monsters were like, how's the art? What's the wow factor for the art?
Sure.
What is the lore and how can I hook it into a game?
Mm-hmm.
And then how interesting are the fight mechanics?
Sure.
So to me, the Shining Child's fight mechanics are probably the weakest out of all of them. They're a 12th level creature.
This is way more sophisticated than I went with my list, but cool, go ahead.
Cool. They have some pretty interesting like fight mechanics. Mm-hmm. They have like a blinding ability. They're all about like shining light. You know, they're shining children.
Like literal light.
They literally blind you with big AoE effects. Whenever they cast spells, they have cool abilities like that.
Sure.
Their lore is that they are, and I hope I get this right. They are children of the like off-gassing that happens during the creation of demiplanes in the astral plane. Like, what the fuck?
So they're astral creatures, which is not a thing I see a lot in Pathfinder lore.
More than that, they're what happens when a star goes supernova.
Yeah.
And gases spin off in a direction and they end up forming a new star. Like that is the analogy.
How do you build stories around that in a high fantasy, like, you know, medieval setting?
Because they love learning. They're scouring the universe for secrets and esoteric knowledge and stuff like that. But then they're like randomly assholes apparently, and they'll just like randomly kill indiscriminately. They don't have
damn children.
They don't have a sense
shining
of
their lights on my lawn.
They don't have an ego. They don't have names for themselves. They refer to themselves as like a patron,
right?
A group. And also they're different kinds of shining children, because when that astral plane creates a demiplane and then poops out a couple shining children, scientific terms. The shining children that are created all are of a same like emotion. They all have the same zhuzh that makes them up. And when they meet each other randomly, they can all tell that they're from the same like mother demiplane.
Right.
Which to me is like, that's a lot of deep lore for like 2 paragraphs worth of stuff. You know
it really is, and it's weird, and I dig the weird. I mean, that's what we're all about.
Exactly.
My question is there any other creature in that book that kind of goes with it, or are they just sort of by themselves? Like you have goblins that lead up to hobgoblins, that lead up to hill giants and ogres, and you know eventually get to storm giants at the end. You know, is there sort of like an ascension tier for whatever the fuck that thing is?
There isn't, not that I saw.
There isn't, and that's going to lead into one of my top 5.
Well, I like that because I'm getting more and more warmed up to the Cthulhu alien vibes that Pathfinder's putting out, because I've been playing a lot of like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, getting ready for the next expansion that's coming out. And also I've been reading a lot of books like the Malazan series that
Mhm.
have very alien, otherworldly creatures. And
Sure.
to me, that's more evocative of an interesting fantasy setting
Sure.
than relying on classic tropes.
Right. Your tastes are changing
Yeah.
and evolving and
Yeah, exactly. And like
getting more
this is
sophisticated.
very reminiscent of science, you
Yeah.
know, like how galaxies form. And for them to make that analogy to me was like an aha moment. I was like, oh yeah, this deserves a top 5 just for the art and the lore alone.
I
The
dig it.
fight is kind of mid. They dedicate themselves to scholarship and violence with equal measure in a futile effort to understand their roles in the multiverse and the burning injustices of their births.
The
Like,
burning injustices of their births.
fuck,
How
dude.
emo.
I was raised Buddhist, and that like hits me square in the face. You know what I mean? Like that's fucking snaps for that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They also do like a mix of vitality and fire damage.
Vitality and fire. I
yeah,
like that.
which I think is
I
pretty
like that.
interesting.
Are they in Starfinder? Do we know? I don't know.
We're getting a new edition of Starfinder, so I'm imagining they might be.
Yeah.
It would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, that's my number 5.
You know, I had no
Shining
idea
child.
what was going to be on your top 5,
Really?
and I didn't see this one being one of them.
Oh, cool.
So,
Hell yeah.
I figured it was going to be like your number 5 was going to be dragons. Your number 3 was going to be dragons. Number 4 was going to be something either between dragons or dragons.
I do like dragons.
Yeah, they're really good.
I
But,
do like dragons, just
yeah.
in general.
When I made my top 5, I did like 3 top 5s before
Yeah.
I finally settled on this one.
Do you remember? Hold on. Okay. Just
What
to
do you
talk
got?
about
What do you
dragons
got?
a little bit.
Hit me.
Do you remember like in the 90s, there was like those statues of dragons holding like a glass orb?
Yeah.
I loved those as a kid,
Mhm.
and I collected like 10 of them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I ended up
Were they
selling them.
pewter?
They were heavy. I don't know what they're made out
Yeah.
of.
Yeah,
I
they were
would, like,
pewter back when I was looking at them.
Save my money, and
Uh-huh.
I would like me and my mom would go to these weird shops
Uh-huh.
like at flea markets, and I would find them and I
Yep.
would pick my favorite and I'd bring it home, and I just had a shelf
Yeah.
of dragons on them. So,
Yeah, and at night you would just put them in your mouth and kind of suck on the pewter dragon head, and that explains like how you are the way you are today. That's not.
what the fuck?
Maybe that was my story. I don't know.
Oh, anyway, what's your number 5, Eric? Way to ruin my fucking childhood.
Find me some Colo in there, and I'll start talking.
What's the page number?
KHOLO. Don't know. I should have written it down, but I'm not
Ugh.
usul.
Oh my God. I literally opened the book.
You're
and tried to
good
do
at
it
this. You're good at
automatically.
this.
Yeah.
So Colos are my number 5. When I first did this, I did just my 5 favorite creatures
Yeah.
in this book that I thought were interesting, either because they're interesting and have been since Bestiaria 1, or they got redone somehow. And I realized how uninspired I was by the time I looked at it. So I redid my list, did some things, and I redid my list a third time. Colos made
God.
number 5 in here. Well, only like 2 of my top 5 are creatures.
You did some soul searching.
So I did. Apparently, I took this seriously. So, Colos. What are Colos? Well, they used to be our happy little hyena boys.
Gnolls.
Gnolls, as the linguists say.
But now they've been de-Pinkertonized.
They have. Now, the reason why I like these guys is because this book took an anthropological take on the Gnolls. They removed them from the idea of good and evil while giving them abilities that rely on pack tactics,
Mm-hmm.
which not only create sort of like a unified team building thing, like, you know, all these Marvel movies that we're crapping out every day now. You know, you have like bad guy teams, you have good guy teams, you have neutral guy teams, you got teams with all of them all the way across the board, but they all find a way to get unified, right? You know, whether they're a dysfunctional family or a perfectly functional family. These Gnolls seem like a functional family, the way it's written in here.
Mm-hmm.
So their special abilities that they have in their combat stat blocks, they're not like, this is my ability and this is what makes me cool. It's, this is my ability and I get to be cool because you're standing next to me and you're standing next to me, and together we are greater than the sum of our parts.
Absolutely.
So back in first edition Pathfinder, I remember they had a lot of those pack tactics feats that the monsters were able to take as Gnolls.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it feels like they brought that back for this. I don't remember them being in the bestiary. Might have been an oversight on my part, but it seems to have come back and punched me in the face on this one.
This is a great example of it. Bark orders,
Yep.
auditory, linguistic, one action. The Colo Sergeant commands their allies to reposition.
Mhm.
Any allies who hear and understand this order can use a reaction to step.
Yeah, that's one of the 3 that I picked out.
That's fucking spicy.
It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
spicy.
just like for the GMs who are like, I'm going to run a pack of 4 Gnolls.
Yeah.
No, it's a pack of 4 Gnolls or, Colos now.
Colos, yeah.
And it's just more dynamic on my side of the GM screen. And I love this anthropological take on the gnolls. And they said when they put out this book, Monster Core, that guys, we're not doing alignment anymore.
Mhm.
So you're not going to see neutral evil, chaotic evil, lawful evil on these monster stat blocks. Well, how do we know whether they are or not? You're missing the point.
Yeah.
So I've been seeing a lot of arguments on a lot of social media about like why we need alignments and how people just didn't use the old line or didn't understand the old alignments.
Yeah.
Look, you're going to find sidebars all up and down this book and other books to come, I imagine, that talk about like the contextual information behind the critter type and how they relate to one another in ways that don't need us to talk about notions of good and evil. You'll find it with the Celestials. You'll find it with the not Celestials.
The angels?
No, the angels, archons, and the furries.
The furries.
They're all called Celestials.
Just furries now.
The demons, devils, and daemons are all called
Bad guys?
fiends. They're called fiends.
Sure, yeah.
Fiends and
yeah.
Celestials. Why is that so hard?
Yeah, okay, so fiends.
Anyhow, they these groupings, and you'll find these sidebars in here that says, look, here's the archon train of thought, and this is how they see angels. This is how they see the furries. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm not. I am, but I'm not.
Shout out in the comments, furries. Hit us up. Yeah, blow up my comment section.
Yeah.
Comments, furries. I know you have the power. Organize your hordes of nerds.
Just grab it by the tail and yank. So, why do I like colos?
My little colies.
That would be great. A little My Little Pony, only Knowles.
Yes, my little coley, my little coley. Oh, this is going off the rails quick.
Yeah. So why do I like colos? One, it feels more anthropological. To me, that creates that element of verisimilitude. Yeah, totally. That makes it feel real, authentic. It makes me feel like these are lived creatures that lived creatures with lived experiences that live in a lived-in world. It just makes me feel like I'm in a book. I'm in a novel, not like I'm in a 4-panel comic book or something like that, which is cool in its own thing. But that's fucking rad, and I can't wait to get him back to Legacy of Fire and redo that experience for that specific monster entry.
Do you think they're going to remake Legacy of Fire?
No, they're absolutely not. But that's my favorite AP, out of all the ones that ever came out. And I just love it so much, as flawed and problematic as it was in certain areas. But
that's like
it's all about hyenas in the beginning.
Oh, really?
And it's like a city of fucking hyenas that move into a place that's got a demon underneath and blah, blah, blah. It's not really spoilers.
The Jinn or Genie elements are strong in that one too, right?
They are, yeah. And they redid that in this book.
Yeah, they did.
So all of that is making me, this is number 5 on my top 5 of this 300-page book because 1, it's just cool.
Yeah.
2, it reimagines things and shifts it in a way that makes me think about it. And 3, it makes me want to revisit old material that I paid for 10, 15 years ago.
That's pretty fucking awesome.
And I want to re-experience that in the new context.
Or like rewrite it almost.
Yeah.
You could rewrite it, add pieces to that old adventure that makes sense given the context of the adventure.
Yeah. It's kind of like, if I knew now what I knew then, well, guess what? There's new knowledge now and I can go back to then and give it another go. Kolos, number 5. What is your number 4? And does it have anything to do with children?
Vilde Raven.
A Vilde Raven.
Vilde Raven. My number 4 is Vilde Raven.
Vilde Raven. Do they yodel?
Page 340. They better, dude. They better.
I love how you're calling page numbers when you're like, Mr. I use Archives of Nethys. I don't need page numbers.
I do. I actually Control F'd the PDF to find all of these page numbers, so I was prepared for today.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Robbo.
The Vilde Raven.
Can you spell that for me? Because I think you're making up words.
VILDERAVN.
These fucking words. So they're ravens with Vilde in front of it. Got it.
Yes.
I'm expecting something like Nordic or Vikinging. So what do you got?
I have been reading the Malazan series, picking back up on I'm like 3/4 through book 2 right now. And there is a very iconic.
I blame you, Slick.
Oh yeah, Slick's the reason why. It's fucking beautiful. I have all the audiobooks now. I'm just gonna crack through them all. But there's a really iconic monster character in that book 1. They're called Great Ravens. They're these giant ravens that can cast spells and shape change. They literally eat magic. And when I'm reading the Vilde Raven, it screams one of these designers is also a Malazan fucking nerd.
Sure. Yeah.
And
We all read the
basically,
same books, right?
yeah, ripped off a lot of in artist theft. So when I say ripped off, I mean that with love. So when I read the backstory for the Vilde Raven, I just fell in love immediately.
Why are you saying it like that?
Because it's fun. So yeah, Vilde Raven, they feel like they were ripped right out of Malazan, and I love it. They're a giant fucking raven that can shape change into a person, their animal form, and then a person wearing a suit of armor. And the suit of armor is the picture they have on the book.
Of course it is.
It is easily one of the fucking coolest suits of armor.
That looks like a Hell Knight to me.
It's one of the coolest suits of armor that I think Paizo has ever drawn.
Oh.
Like, I one day when I run out of ideas for YouTube channels, I'm going to make a tier list of suits of armor that Paizo has drawn. And the Vilde Raven is going to be like top 3 at least. It screams everything I love about armor in it. So
that sword's not too shabby either.
Sword's badass. The armor is like well proportioned for being like incredibly flexible and usable.
Fey. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So the
coming together.
The idea here is that an old Fey god or whatever created these Vilde Raven for the use to corrupt and break and malign these human or not human, but like, intelligent beings because they ruined the forest. Magic-eating crows who goad proud leaders into war to punish a mortal man for ruining the land with their own iron armaments. That's right out of the book.
Okay.
So they were created by an elf. They're giant magic-consuming ravens that fly down.
The Vilde stripe.
Of the Vilde stripe. They fly down and they corrupt the minds of the human leaders. It's like all my favorite parts of the Great Ravens from Malazan in a character. What I love about them is because is the fact that they shape change into people. And you're going to find a lot of my top 5 shape change into people.
Yeah. And I love that sort of thing.
I do
big
too.
on werebeasts and monster folk and shit like that.
I love the idea of a BBEG being an NPC you guys have been interacting with for a long time.
Yeah.
And then he transforms into the Vilde Raven.
Right. His final form.
His final form
is a furry of the air.
They're a 16th level creature. Like that's a
not too shabby
fucking boy. Like that is the perfect capstone
like
monster.
An apex monster. Yep.
For an entire adventure path from like levels 5 to 15. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
And if you go into like the back of the book where they have like the creatures by type and you go to Fey and they're in that list probably at the top or the bottom, you can sort of like just like make your way there. You can almost see the adventure just play out before you.
So I want to call out 2 special abilities. Remember I talked about art, backstory, and combat abilities.
Yes.
They have 2 specific combat abilities that are brutal. Absolutely.
Hit me with them.
Brutal, but also evocative of that Mine movie we always talk about. First up is the Bloodbird. Effectively, creature hit by the Vilde Ravens melee attack becomes cursed. It takes 2d6 persistent bleed damage that is difficult to staunch. The DC to stop bleeding using administer first aid is 35.
Yeah, they don't want you to heal.
But keep in mind, you want to like the players are probably like 15th level by now. So that 35 in first level terms is closer to like a 20? You know, it's like a DC 20 for a first level character. And then the healing healing the creature to full HP doesn't automatically end the bleeding. Removing the curse ends the bleeding. So
okay.
You're fucked.
Yep.
Like if you get hit by this and he gets away, you are having to
and you automatically have a goal
with this bleeding curse.
Yep.
And then there is Soul Eater.
Soul Eater.
Soul Eater. If the Vilde Raven kills a humanoid with a critical hit using their jaws strike, highly improbable, but cool as fuck.
Sure.
They rip out and devour the target's heart and soul as a part of the attack. The most metal sentence in the entire book. Exactly. While the target is dead, the Vilde Raven can change shape into the target's form, gaining +4 blah 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 to deception blah blah blah. If the magic would resurrect the creature, the caster must succeed a DC 34 counteract check to extract the target's soul from the Vilde Raven. Otherwise, the spell fails. So, like, I just imagine throwing this BBG at my players when they're like 13th level, 12th level, and maybe one of the PCs wants to change their character, you know? Fucking rip their heart out of their chest, eat their soul, and now the players have like a vendetta against this giant raven, and they end up interacting with, maybe they even tell the story of how their friend got killed to the Vilde Raven, who's transformed into an NPC they trust.
Right.
And then down the line, so there's like already some betrayal going on, and then down the line, the BBEG of the end of the adventure is springs around in his evil chair. The Vilde Raven was the bad guy all the time. Like, to me, that's like the most epic shit in the world.
I thought you were going to say John Mulaney.
But yeah, so number 4, Vilde Raven.
Yeah, I'm getting some serious
oozing.
Harry Dresden Files vibes on that with like Queen Mab, the heir of, Queen of Air and Darkness, and the whole Winter Court thing. And this guy, please don't leak on my shiny new book.
I dodged it. We're good.
Yeah, this time. That's a solid pick. And I'll be honest, I must have skipped that page when I was like blitzing through this fucking thing, because I only had it for a couple of days before having to do all this shit. And I'm like, nope. Oh, okay, let's read that. Nope. No, okay, let's read that.
Same. Yeah.
Can you find me the Dominion of the Black? Because that's my number 4.
Ooh.
So categories of critters. You have your, we decided there were fiends, there were celestials. One are, all the outer planar good guys. The other one is all the outer planar bad guys and furries. I forget which grouping they're in. But the Dominion of the Black, they're not outer planar creatures. They're sort of prime material plane creatures, like out in space. And I guess that's kind of, if you think like Cthulhu, you're really not far off. They're beyond time and space, and they travel and sleep between the stars. They're always eldritch and creepy and Cthulhuid. Dominion, is it not in there?
I can find it. Just keep talking.
Okay.
I
know my alphabet.
I'm not good at letters.
I think you just want to talk about dragons. Yeah,
No,
it's that chapter. It's that chapter.
Is that chapter?
You're almost there.
Oh yeah, these are weird.
Just look for brains and you're in that area.
Okay.
So when you think of like
right after dolphin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that should be included in there.
Absolutely.
Because, thanks for all the fish. So Dominions of the Black is sort of like a catch-all grouping of individual eldritch creatures from beyond time and space.
Okay.
So when you think of like the Hound of Tindalos, when you think of Cthulhu, when you think of all of these H.P. Lovecraftian guys that Paizo has kind of like sucked in, they're all sort of a type of story. And the best corollary I can think of to compare them to are Mind Flayers from Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
So when you have demons and devils and daemons, what you're talking about are extraplanar creatures that are invested in the role of sin, in the value of sin as a commodity. I said sin, I meant soul.
Yeah.
Souls as a commodity, whether we're eating them, whether we're corrupting them and altering them, whether we're trading them on the black market in hell, or whether we're preserving them if we're angels, and so on and so forth. But the Dominion of the Black, they're unknowable, they're inscrutable. They're eldritch. They're like, these are insanity stories, asylums, and that wonderful tradition there. So I never really knew what to do with the Dominion of the Black in Pathfinder First Edition and Pathfinder Second Edition pre-remastered, because I never really understood how they work together as a unified whole, if you can call them even a unified whole. So Dominion of the Black is an umbrella sort of categorization. And I realized once I saw them back to back in this entry, the same way they presented demons, same way they presented devils, same way they presented angels and all that they're basically used to tell infiltration, pre-invasion stories. These are inscrutable, unknowing alien minds. It feels like a natural extension of the Fiend Celestial groupings. And whenever you see these guys pop up in adventures, that might be an overstatement, but it happens enough to where I feel safe saying that. It's kind of like an invasion's coming. This guy, you see him. This is X-Files territory. This is the
scouting party.
It's a scouting party, right. And maybe the scouting party got here like 8 million years ago, and they've been sleeping under rocks ever since, and now they're awake. Or, there's a cult running around that's, worshiping it, trying to, derive eldritch power from it.
And maybe once they finish their occult thing, it creates a beacon that pulls.
Funny you should mention that, because one of these creatures does exactly that.
Yeah.
And
the dolphin?
It's the dolphin. Insanity.
Insanity.
So also like demons and devils and angels and all that, you'll have their really fucked up names that nobody remembers because unless you just, you have that kind of brain. Xoarian, Zorian. I will never remember that. But next to it, there's a descriptor name. It's almost like a plant. There's the scientific name, and then there's the one we all use because we're not nerds.
Yeah. Because we're not nerds.
The Zorians are corpse riders.
Yeah.
Okay. Without even reading the stat block, I know what that is. I look at the picture. It's a brain with tentacles, like every other thing in the Lovecraftian universe.
Ru Chalik is a void wanderer.
Is a void wanderer.
I wonder what they do.
Why do we call them void wanderers? Because RHU-CHALIK is not a thing anybody's going to remember.
Ru Chalik.
So we've got the void wanderer. We got the corpse rider. We got the harvest beacon. That's the one I was referring to.
It's a mind snatcher.
We got the mind snatcher, in no way related to the mind flayer whatsoever because we're in orc territory now.
Yep.
So all of that kind of, it's going to lead to another item on my top 5 in a little bit, and I will bracket this conversation. So why do I like the Dominion of the Black? Because they fill the role that I loved with mind flayers in D&D. The idea of this eldritch, unknowable alien civilization, like deep underground, deep in the ocean, out in space, in a volcano, the far hazardous reaches, and they've just been lying dormant for millennia.
Mole people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But less Marvel.
Okay.
And they're a category, like not a hegemonic category. They're or a monolithic category. I mean, they're like more so than demons and devils. They're discreetly individuals.
Absolutely.
So like this harvest beacon is a bipedal person with like a mushroom-like oversized brain. It looks like a Leshy, like a creepy as fuck Leshy. You're never gonna confuse this guy with this mind snatcher, which looks like a crazy large crab with too many eyes on it. But when you look
Eyeball
at
crab.
like two devils next to each other, there's a lot
just
more
some
overlap
horny
than there are
boys.
here. So these
You know
guys
what
are
I mean?
definitely more distinct and unique, and you don't
definitely.
find like 25 of them in a room together playing cards. So,
But what if you did?
so my number 4 is just Dominion of the Black as a whole, and there's like 4 or 5 or 6 different entries for them, and they're all of different levels too. So when I'm trying to think of a game to run, and in what order do I want to encounter these, the math basically writes the story itself.
6, 8,
If you want
8,
to,
and 11.
yeah. So like mid-level adventures, which is where I eat. High level drags the tempo of the game way down. Low level doesn't give a lot of interesting.
Played the
We
tempo in Pathfinder
But
Second
every board game I've ever played where
Yeah.
there was enough overhead, where it was an expert level game,
Yeah.
the tempo just gets dragged way down. So I thrive in mid-level gaming environments, and these guys kind of hit that sweet spot for me.
Hell yeah.
So that's my metal
That's
as fuck number 4,
Yeah,
Dominion
that's
of the
pretty dope.
Black, to follow your Wilde Raven.
Vilde Raven. My number 3 is Rune Giants.
Oh, that is an oldie and a goodie.
Yeah.
That's Rise of the Rune Lords.
Absolutely.
Original material.
So I didn't know
Talk to me about Rune Giants.
this was a thing. I didn't know.
You didn't know?
I didn't know Rune Giants existed before reading this book.
All the times we talked about Rune Lords.
Yeah.
That's like OG Rune Lord
Yeah,
shit there.
Thessalonian. I love the Thessalonian stuff.
Yeah.
But
We
I
really
never,
should get into that more.
we should, but I never read about it because I don't want to spoil anything that happens
'Cause
in
you
an
wanna play it.
adventure.
Yeah.
I want to play it
For sure.
So I know very little about it, but I love the lore that I have found out about it.
Okay.
So when I read
Maybe after Edgewatch.
when I read the Rune Giants, I was like, anything Thessalonian is cool, but when I found out Rune Giants are literally the like mind enslavers of all the other giants, they were like the generals that were then given power by the Rune Lords.
Rune Giants are to giants as hobgoblins are to goblins.
Yes.
Yeah. They tell them what to do and where to go.
And what's cool is the Rune Giant has all these amazing abilities for dominance, mind dominance over other creatures.
Right. Giants with dominance. Usually when I think of giants, I think like thugs and extra damage and bludgeoning.
Yeah.
What do you got?
So giants, I want to point out that giants have always been the big bad baby EG of Pathfinder and D&D going history's past.
Right.
I mean, you could call Dungeons and Dragons really Dungeons, Dragons, and Giants.
Sure. In Greek mythology, Norse mythology, it's like it goes back to thousands of years in traditions.
And it's a pretty simple idea. Big person. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and they create the original cities of the mythologies, I guess.
Yeah, right. And they did in Pathfinder. So it's I think it's really cool just to see them leaning into the roots of D&D and adding some really cool. All of the giants here have very healthy like lore to them that makes them all unique.
They're distinctive,
And
100%.
they've all grown from this place. Oh, the Shadow Giant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So they've all grown from this same point of being like enslaved by the Rune Lords. They've all gone their separate ways and lived with the trauma of that and grown past it. And to have then the big bad Rune Giant creature level 16, it's just like, to me, when you look at the environments they live in, stuff like that, they live all over the place.
Right.
They find anywhere home because they were the masters.
Where
of
you
the
find
domain.
giants, you will find them.
Absolutely.
Oh, they're not rare. I thought they would have been rare.
Yeah, they're uncommon. Yeah. Invoke Rune is fucking wild. Basically, they blow up one of their runes and then get a special power like Rune of Destruction, Rune of Flames, Rune of Smithing, Rune of Space. So, battlefield manipulation or creating items or like just flaming weapon or whatever like that. From a combat perspective, they make for a very dynamic combat because they have these abilities like Demand. When a Rune Giant casts their innate sending spell, they also cast Suggestion on the target. So you could have a BBEG Rune Giant pulling the strings from, very far away because sending has a long range to it.
Right.
You could have this as a stepping stone monster where the player's like 14 and you're ready to run that book 6, book 5 of the end of an adventure. And they could have just awoken from, a old Thessalonian tomb.
Sure.
And now they've been pulling the strings throughout the entire adventure, but someone's pulling their strings, and that's who you go.
How terrifying is that? Like a brainiac that's also 3 stories tall, or whatever.
Yeah. Because normally when we think of brainiacs, we think of like people who are strong in mind but weak in body. These have it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. +2 to intelligence.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. What I like about them most though is that they've kind of shifted the hierarchy, and obviously this is lore that has already existed, but to me this shifts the hierarchy of giants. And in my whole headcanon, because storm giants are supposed to be the top dogs, because D&D. So I was thinking, like I would love to run Storm King's Thunder, which is a pretty iconic giant focused adventure path for 5th edition in Golarion with this
using this
remaneuvered kind of.
Oh, that could be interesting. Yeah.
Where the apex opponent is not a Storm King. It's not Storm King's Thunder. It's Rune Giant's Awakening or something like that.
Yeah.
Like rewriting that adventure, but in the context of Golarion would be a lot of fun. And also I think it would make for a much more rich adventure because like in Storm King's Thunder, the first giant you run into is like a hill giant. And they're like these dumb gluttons, basically.
Well, yeah, it's D&D.
Yeah,
everything's super simplified.
But like the fucking marsh giants and stone giants of Pathfinder have a lot of like heavy lifting that you have to do as a DM to make them really shine because there's a lot of lore here, and that's good. Like needing to have to. I wouldn't say that you have to do heavy lifting, but they benefit greatly.
Right,
they're great returns on.
Paizo provides the material to make them pass the silhouette test.
Yeah, and they can still be silhouettes though. They can still be silhouettes if you just need a silhouette.
Just random mooks.
Exactly.
Hill giant number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's my.
I dig that. One of the things that I'm kind of like honing in on as you say that is there's this interesting thing where there's the lazy paradigm. And when I say lazy, what I mean is it's been going on for so many years. It's just automatic at this point, and we presume that's the way it is. Your escalation of giant power ends at storm giants or titans if you go one level higher. And here in the Paizo sort of mythos, if you will,
cloud giants are 11.
Sure.
And then shadow giants are 13.
Shadow giants are I don't remember seeing them before.
Yeah.
But the idea of rune giants being able to tell all the other giants what to do, and rune giants are a Paizo original. They don't exist in D&D. They don't exist in other TTRPGs. It's specifically for Pathfinder because rune giants were creations of rune lords.
Yes.
So where rune giant might be the apex creature of the giant, they're pulling the strings. Well, there's still a rune lord out there that might be pulling the strings of the rune giant. And that guy's 6 feet tall with a stave, with a glaive, So that's, there's just a lot of fun, entertaining, playable room as a GM to mess around with these guys and who's below them and who's over them.
Exactly.
And that's what's interesting to me because you mentioned they were creature 16. If we're running to 20, well, shit, if the rune giant was doing everything behind the scenes, we still got 4 levels to go after this. Ooh, who's who's calling the shots behind the shots, behind the shots, you know?
Maybe there's an NPC.
And that's where I live.
Maybe there's like an NPC that the players have been adventuring with or have been growing with.
Was it Rune Lord the whole time?
Well, yeah, maybe they accidentally opened the crypt of this ancient rune lord and were infused with a bunch of rune magic, or learned over the course of years rune magic, unlocked a door, and they became powerful enough to begin to influence this rune giant. Or maybe this rune giant wanted to turn them into a new rune lord.
What was that animated movie? Like My Little Giant, or the something giant? It was the animated movie about the little boy and the giant. With the bright yellow eyes. What the hell was that called?
It was like a mechanical giant from another world that was supposed to invade, but he got hit in the head.
It's something like that, and it was just this fun, like, boy and his dog kind of story, only it was a boy and his giant.
Yeah.
But like, imagine like what you were saying, a little my daddy was a rune lord and I got all of his power. And I'm running around on the shoulders of this rune giant here, and we have adventures across the land. And the rune giant's
teaching the kid how to be a fucking rune lord.
Right.
I mean? Like mentoring.
So like a dark little twist on that one.
Absolutely.
The Iron Giant? Was it called The Iron Giant?
It was The Iron Giant.
Yeah.
I love that movie as a kid.
Damn near cried on that one. I think I did cry.
Yeah, same.
All right. What about me? Can I do a number 3? Do I get a number 3?
I'll think about it.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you switch us over to ghost or werewolf? Whichever one comes first.
Ghost.
Are you detecting a theme out there, goblins? We like our metal as fuck stuff in this list.
Yes.
So for my number 3, again, I chose a category. In this case, templates. There's about a dozen or so.
Your number 3 is templates in general?
I'm telling you, man, I wasn't expecting this, but I got all kinds of
wild takes.
My top 5 is shit I can use and get off on as a GM.
Also, scamps exist and they're adorable.
Yeah,
Scamps
I was going to end with that, but sure, while we're there.
Oh, damn it! Ruined it.
They Ronald, the rules lawyer out there, he touched on the idea of how like they turned up the dial on cute with the illustrations,
they really did.
And I don't know how I feel about it. In fact, I know how I feel about it. I'm conflicted.
Yeah,
because I love it for the little idiot creatures. The hi there, you little one-eyed bat-winged devil of some sort. But like for the more serious creatures, don't go cute on like a succubus or something like that. That's a bad example. But so my number 3, undead / were creature templates. This is a monster manual. They can all be ghosts. They can all be werewolves. They can all be were-porcupines. Whatever you want to wear them up to. They can be ghosts. They can be ghouls. There's about 4, 5, 6, or 7 different, like, if you want your your baby porcupine to be a vampire, here are the stats you need to bump up and bump down. Here's some new immunities. Here's some resistances. Here's some level switches. You might want to consider taking this ability A they already have.
Grave
Pull
Knight.
it out. And a Grave Knight is another one.
Yeah.
Basically they have one for like a wizard undead, a fighter undead, a cleric undead, and they kind of go through the list. But pull this ability out and put another one in its place. It tells you how to create a were-beast out of a dwarf, out of an aboleth, out of whatever the fuck you have in this book, out of a hag.
The hag.
Since you're just looking at that page.
Yeah.
And the idea of doing that takes these X number of creatures that are in this book and makes this book have X plus a dozen. You get more. This book is more than the sum of its parts with the addition of these templates. And I remember they went really hard on that back in Pathfinder 1st edition. And I think that might have even been a D&D 3.5 thing, just like templating the hell out of things and creating all these weird combinations.
I know it was a big thing in
and they it felt like they went away from that with 2e. And this is sort of like bringing it back without breaking shit.
Yeah.
And it was important enough to me as a GM, as a player, to know that I'm walking up and I see like a gnome, and the gnome has like dusky skin. Oh, it's a Duskwalker. Why do I know that? Because I've been playing Pathfinder 2e pre-remastered for 4 years.
Yep.
No, it's not a Duskmaster. Duskwalker.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's this other thing because we have it now, and we don't have to break our brains trying to create the thing. It's super easy. You can slap it over other monsters, and they show in the opening of these different entries, whether it's vampire or ghost or you said the other one, skeletal knight, whatever it was. Let's see. you can template other creatures and more or less doubling the content of the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they have undead creatures and were creatures that you can do that with, I wonder what other kind of templates they can have. You know, they're going to be bringing in demons and devils at some point,
Absolutely.
and angels and, you know, whatever. And that's, I think that's a good way to go as long as they stick to the 2nd edition math. I will be happy with that.
It's pretty hard to break the math.
It is.
It's pretty hard to break it.
And
if
it
you
took
follow the
this
rules.
long for them to bring it back. So I think they wanted to be sure when they did.
Absolutely.
So that's, I don't really have anything extra to say on that.
Right.
My number 3 is the specifically undead / were creature templates you can apply to other monsters in the book or into Bestiary 1,
Absolutely.
Bestiary 2, Bestiary 3. All the shits has already come out in all the adventure paths. Do you have a BBEG in book 4 of the 3rd AP for, you know, 2nd edition PF2? Well, now he's a white.
Talking about templates, one of my favorite things, one of my favorite monsters we ever had was, I can't remember if this is 3.5 or Pathfinder 1st edition. Templates were big in 1st edition as well. Not as big as in 3.5, but pretty big in 1st edition. I literally looked through the bestiary and I was like, all right, I want to make a lich. So I had the lich template and I saw that the lich was based on charisma for some reason. That makes no sense, but whatever. So I found the highest
sexy liches.
I found the highest, speaking of sexy liches, I found the highest charisma creature in that book, which was the nymph.
Oh, sure. Right.
So I made a lich.
Not even a succubus, but the nymph.
Yeah, I made the nymph lich.
Uh-huh.
I splatted them together. And then in my little 15-year-old headcanon, I created this giant, like, lore dump about how could a nymph become a lich in the first place? Why would they become a lich? You know, you could just literally randomly choose one of these templates, randomly choose a monster, combine them, and then ask yourself, how did this happen?
Yeah, and that does a really cool extra thing, which is rewires the neural pathways in your brain when it comes to how we absorb our creative content and then kind of like spit more creative content out.
How did the Lindworm become a werewolf? How
Very
is
carefully.
this Lindworm werewolf? What does this even mean?
He's
You
got
know
a little
what I mean?
pack of pills that he uses to adjust his chemical levels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of like my 2 cents on the templates. I love
Those guys
templates.
are fucked up.
Yeah, they're pretty fucking rad, dude. Knuckle larvae. So my number 2.
You have a number 2?
My number 2 is a specific monster that exists in a category of monsters.
I love
monsters
these guys.
are called Clipoths.
Yeah, that's how I pronounce it.
Oh, is it? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Clipoth.
Clipoth. Yeah. So page 282. So let's talk about Clipoths just generally speaking.
Yeah.
They live in the nooks and crannies in the abyss between
is no longer the abyss anymore, right?
Is it not? I don't know.
No, it's I think they call it the outer rifts now
outer
because
rifts.
abyss is, you know, we can't say that anymore because we're in orc territory.
Pinkertons. Anyway,
the goddamn Pinkertons.
So basically, these are pre-demon demons. These are what lived there before demons and devils took over.
Right, because they predate souls.
Sentient creatures.
Yeah.
Which is wild to me.
Yeah.
And they're still really...
They feel primal, don't they? They're like primal demons.
They're like primal meets alien to me. The pictures on these are all fungal or weird animals splatted together.
They have an
in
occulty
creepy
vibe
ways.
to them for
They have
sure.
a very strong occulty vibe.
Yeah.
And what I love about them is they want to go to war with demons and devils. And the best way to kill all demons and devils is to destroy all the mortal life that gives them power. So they still have a very good
That's bad for us.
reason to destroy all mortal life.
Sure.
Which means they make very direct and easy to play BBEGs.
Sure. And yet they're not daemons.
And yet they're not daemons.
And that's what daemons do.
I love daemons so much.
Yeah. I hate the way it's pronounced.
But goddamn.
Yeah.
Also, daemon and demon are too close to each other.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Daemon is daemon apparently, and the AE is an A sound like apple or bad linguistically. So when I read the word daemon, and I'm forced to say daemon in front of people, otherwise I sound stupid.
Is it daemon?
AE is phonetically. That's how that comes across.
Daemon it is.
I only ever hear daemon, so I'm like Matt Damon.
So specifically, what I fell in love with originally was the Augnagar.
You're gonna have to spell these if you're gonna call them out.
Augnagar.
These fucking names. They don't even have the useful nice name on the back end.
Augnagar.
Sure.
There we go. So these are a fucking sick ass combination of like a spider head with like a big mandible face.
Yeah.
With like a roided out body with wings on its arms like a wyvern. And then it's got 3 tails with stingers on the back, reminiscent of a scorpion.
They're a chimera. Yeah.
Yeah, they're level 14,
Mhm.
but this isn't even their final form.
Nope.
The lore is that they like eat and consume everything, including other
Clippets.
clippeths, clippy boys, and they become a Thulgant,
They become a what?
a scour clippeth.
Okay.
So
I will take your
basically,
word for it.
they get so fat and bloated by consuming everything around them that they then consume their own flesh, tearing themselves apart and leveling up into a Thulgant, which is like
Your list is so metal tonight.
it's so metal, dude. I'm just like I'm on a bender of like metal Cthulhu stuff, I guess. But the Thulgant is like a spider with an upside down spider head with like tentacles coming out of its mouth, but it keeps the same 3 tails with the stinger. Got to keep the stinger tails. And this is a really cool, like, to me, I imagine like the players are trying to stop this famous, this notorious Ognagar, and they fail to stop it, and it transforms in front of their eyes, and they have to run away from it because it transforms into this.
And they can just hear the gushing and rending of its own flesh as it eats itself as you're running away.
So this is like this major BBEG thing. They get to the point where it's tearing itself apart. They try to kill it and they fail, and then it transforms and begins just fucking slapping them because it goes from level 14 to level 18. So they get slapped around a bunch. They narrowly escape for whatever reason. Because it's like in a weakened state or something like that, because it just transformed.
Sure.
And now they have to come and hunt this thing down because it's like terrorizing the mortal realm or something like that.
Yeah.
To me, reading this like transformative story of these 2 monsters together, I've never seen a story like this in the monster manual where one monster turns into the other monster. It just immediately started, the adventure started immediately writing itself.
Yeah.
And for that alone, I would have put it on my top 5, but then they both have like dope metal as hell art.
Yeah.
And the abilities of some of the fucking abilities of these monsters are terrifying. I just love stunning. So the Thulgant's stunning display 2 actions. The Thulgant rises up on its twitching limbs and presents its numerous tentacles and stingers in a horrifying display of awfulness. A horrifying display of awfulness. Someone wrote that, Erik. Someone wrote that.
I want that on my business card now.
Yes. Creatures in a 30-foot emanation must attempt a DC 40 will save, after which they are temporarily immune to further stunning displays for 1 minute. I had to read that 2 times because the effect of it, I kept reading the thing like 2 or 3 times. I didn't realize the effect is actually has critical success, failure, and critical failure. It's a tiered, it's a tiered thing under it, but they didn't indent it. So for whatever reason, my brain just thought it was a different ability.
Sentence.
Yeah. So basically on a failure, you're stunned 4. On a success, you're stunned 1. On a critical failure, you're stunned 8. Stunned 8. So stunned 4 for the goblins at home means that you're stunned for an entire round, and then you're stunned for one of your 3 actions.
On the subsequent round.
On the subsequent round.
That's how that works? Ouch.
Yeah, because every time you would take an action,
I didn't know it would carry over.
Yeah, so every time you take you would take an action, it reduces the stunned number.
I figured it was something like you lost all 3, and if your buddy casts haste on you, you still got to subtract.
No, haste doesn't.
It carries over. That's fucked up.
Stunned 8 means you lose 2 entire turns, and then you're stunned 2.
Right.
Which is nuts. Like you critically fail against one of this. Holy shit! They are your team is SOL.
Yep.
Yeah. And then they've got like crazy venom and mind-rending stings and all this like greater horror stuff. But I just love the idea. Getting back to like the grouping of these monsters.
Sure.
I love the idea of this alien Cthulhu-esque creature that lives and fights demons themselves.
Right.
And weaponizes demons a lot of times for their greater means.
Can you imagine like the Dominion of the Black meeting up with the Clippets?
Yeah, exactly.
And we're just in the middle because, I don't know, we're vacationing in the abyss for some reason.
Or maybe they're going to war with each other on the mortal plane.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
For whatever reason they show up. Yeah.
Reason, you know what I mean?
And that's it. That's just, I would love that. It's kind of like, we're not here to fight anything. We're just here to get away from the people who are fighting each other.
Absolutely. Oh, also, so there's one other cliplet that I want to talk about because it's hilarious. This thing is like a crab made of rocks, right?
Mhm.
And it's got a bunch of different limbs. It's got a crab hand. It's got a little like stinger hand, but then it just has a normal human hand with a club,
Uh-huh.
and it actually has an ability tied to the club hand. Exactly, and it says reject tools. A creature hit by the Gongorinan's club must succeed a DC 30 will save or release any manufactured items it's holding.
Nice.
Like
They
it's
do
such
have nice names. You keep using the not nice name.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're doing the Hunger Clipeth now.
Spore Clipeth, Brood Clipeth, Ognar, and the Thulgan. The Ognar doesn't have a name.
Is he?
Oh no, wait, it's down here. Hunger Clipeth. Sorry. And then we've got the Scour.
Yeah.
Clipeth.
See, I'm dumb when it comes to these kinds of names. They just don't stick. So I need the friendly names to track these conversations. One of the things that I love about this is the idea of Clipeths being just ancient and primordial. You know, they were demons before demons were cool, right?
Mhm.
But there's a level 1 creature 1 Clipeth in here.
Yeah.
It's like, how does that even track? And the idea is Clipeths, you know, it's not like there are only so many of them and there's no more Clipeths being born. It's just that's how far back their lineage goes back.
And I love this because it reminds me, this is an homage to a fungus that grows in the minds of ants and controls them to run around and do crazy things and basically spread its spores.
Okay, I have an ant problem on my sink right now
really?
at home, and I don't need to be hearing this shit.
They're pretty cool. Pretty cool. Ants are pretty cool. So the Scythenigot, I'm not even gonna try.
The Spore
Clipeth are foul fungal parasites that grow and thrive in the corpses of small creatures. It wears these bodies like a suit, but also adjusts and tailors the fleshy covering to fit its needs. And the body ends up looking as alien as anything else spawned from a Sylvanian depths. The
Chthonian depths, which is what we're calling the abyss.
Yeah. Long stalk of fungal material that extends from the creature's body, ending in a surprisingly strong set of fanged jaws. So every one of these creatures literally has a "feed me, Seymour, feed me," on the back of them, which is amazing. And it's a level 1 creature. Like, imagine this is the perfect, like,
you compare that with the Tooth Fairy, and you can redo Little Shop of Horrors.
Literally, imagine. Okay, hear me out, goblins. Another adventure I'm pitching.
Wait.
Another adventure I'm pitching you. Level 1 adventure. Adventurers will make their way into a town, and they begin noticing the people are acting kind of weird and stuff like that. Some people are acting normally, other people are acting weird. Other people are calling out that they're acting weird. Turns out there's an infection of spore clipeths. And then eventually, like after they've gone off and done one adventure and come back, they find one consuming like a rat or something like that, and it attacks them.
Dude, what a keep going.
I'm just, no, please go.
Yeah, that would be like a cool, like, you know, we're all children as characters, 0th level, 1st level, whatever. And the adults don't believe us. And they're busy looking for like the problem.
Yeah.
And, you know, the kids are like, there's something wrong with the rat.
Yeah.
Something's growing out of its ear. Shh, let the adults talk.
Exactly.
And, you know, the kid goes and finds their friends.
Yeah.
And all of us are like doing our little Goonies adventures, only like X-Files and creepy and Chthonian.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be
X-Files
rad. I would play the shit out of that.
Yeah. And this also, not to get too deep into the weeds, but we're releasing a GSR special lore drop pretty soon in about a day for our patrons. And a part of that story has a lot to do with fungus. Yeah. And we've written some really cool fungal stuff. I wrote a new druid archetype, not archetype, but druid subclass. And they're all fungal themed. And when I was reading this entry, I was like, dude, I could rip this off and just plug it into.
If you like necromancy and you like druidy fungal things and you want to put them together, Rob's got something for you.
Golgari, baby.
It's
Golgari,
juicy.
baby.
It's real juicy. I can't wait to put it out there.
So hit up the Patreon if you're interested. We've got a roadmap of all the Patreon stuff that we plan on putting out this year. So anyway, that's my number 2. Clipeths.
Yeah, that's a solid one because Clipeths, it's another thing Paizo said, we're going to do our own thing as we get into what it means to be Pathfinder as a setting.
And it's so unique. I've never seen anything like it in another.
Well, it's Lovecraft. Setting. It's like it's not even morally repugnant. It like predates morality. Anyhow, yeah, solid choice. What are we on? Number 2? Okay, can you find me dwarf?
Really, Erik?
Dwarf. DWARF. Dwarf.
Okay. I found the dragons, and I can find my way around now.
I'm a dwarf now. Short.
So talk to me about dwarves.
Short.
The
My
dwarf
number 2 is
warrior?
ancestries.
Really? You chose another category, Erik?
Yeah, because it's useful as fuck, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
And then you're going to be like, oh, Erik, I am wiser and more learned with this knowledge.
Actually.
And now I can run Kingmaker with like minimal effort now.
Okay, all right.
So
pitch me.
ancestries. When
It's a great
players
photo
are
of
playing-
dwarves, by the way.
Yeah,
Holy
yeah, the
shit.
artwork is solid. Dwarves have always been kind of like a nothing ancestry for me.
Agreed.
And that's on me. That's not on like the creators.
Mm.
But there's some evocative artwork coming out these days where it sort of takes the emphasis away from the regalia that dwarves tend to have in their artwork and then centers it cinematically on their features while still having buff as fuck armaments.
Mhm.
So there's sort of like a redirection of where your attention is on this specific piece of artwork. Is that the only dwarf
Yeah,
one?
there's only one.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah.
Each of the ancestors got like one.
So, ancestries. When you are running a game as a GM, there are 3 categories of things that you need to pay attention to because that's what your adventures are all composed of. You need creatures, you need hazards, and I just did the political thing you're not supposed to do. There are 3 points I want to make here up at this
Oh my
podium.
gosh.
The first one,
You
the
didn't
second
write
one,
this part down, Erik?
and then there's a third one.
I trusted
So
you.
like traps and hazards,
Yeah.
there's creatures, and then there's a fucking third one.
Environmental stuff.
Fuck, I forgot. Anyhow,
What?
so
Hazards. There's hazards, creatures, and
I guess I'm just going to call it NPCs.
okay.
So creatures and hazards aside, things that have stat blocks. I will never be without a spontaneous combat ever again. So if you guys are running around and you do something that throws my campaign off so far, I don't know what to do with it because maybe you're going through a crowd and then, I don't know, there's this small gnome grandmother and the party rogue picks their pocket and then like shanks her in the kidney.
Oh my god.
And then she turns around and goes, I've got 10 levels on you, bitch. And she pulls her stave out.
Yeah,
It's like, well, now I need a stat block. Where am I
Yeah.
going to find it?
Yeah.
If this book has 3 different dwarven options, it's got elves, it's got gnomes, it's got orcs, it's got lizard folk, it's got leshies.
Mhm.
All of the we don't have it up here. The player core playable ancestries.
Yep.
I think most, if not all of them, are hobgoblins
Yeah.
are in this book with 3 different options at different levels. When you combine those ancestries with the game mastery or the GM core,
Mhm.
how to build a monster section,
Yeah.
there's literally charts that say, well, gnome grandmother who just got shanked and she's 10 levels up on you. What does that mean? You 5th level rogue who just tried to do that. Well, she's 15th level. Oh, look, I've got my 15th level numbers right here.
Right.
Do I need what's her perception? What's her skill? What armor class does she have? Saving throws, hit points, resistances and weaknesses. Grandma's got resistances,
Right.
no weaknesses. She's a bad bitch.
No weaknesses.
Strike attack bonus.
Arthritis, weakness.
Strike damage. You know, these need to be like spell cards
Yeah,
that every GM should have just to be like, fuck, I need a God damn it, you guys. Can you just play my game straight the way I want you to play
Yeah.
instead of making me have to rebound?
Stay on the rails.
Right? Stay on the rails.
Please.
So if you're not talking about creatures and hazards, if you're talking about like actual sentient,
Mhm.
civilized, quote unquote, I'll never be without a spontaneous combat entry ever again. And coupled with my GM core or game mastery guide, it'll take seconds to find what I need just to get through that scene. And then the role play will kind of push it through a little bit faster. You'll always have a functional entry for an NPC now. I'm not saying that you can use these the same way you can in the build an NPC section. That's more specific.
Yeah.
But this is super fucking functional. It will get you through the scene. And then, hey, you've got a new NPC you can build after that session for next time. Grandma is going to be a recurring character now because you guys felt empowered to give me your zaniest shit. I had a functional framework to receive it under to get through that session. And then I take all that home with me and I build an NPC later.
So your argument is it allows you to yes and your way through zany situations.
Really quick without that stupid look on your face, like, what do I do now?
Oh fuck.
Well, I know what to do now because the fucking charts are everywhere and I know what page it's on because I bookmarked them.
Yeah, that's like a secret. That's like a secret
It's a hack.
that new DMs need to learn pretty early on is that when the players throw something at you, I know a lot of DMs are scared about the improv side of DMing.
Sure.
All you have to do is pretend that you're in control and the players will think you're in control. I mean, this is just, honestly, advice for life in general.
Sure.
But like, if you just pretend that you're
Fake it till you make it.
if you're just pretending that everything is fine,
Mhm.
and okay, cool, that's pretty zany. Oh, it's fun. But then she turns around and hits you on the head with her staff. Your dagger didn't even pierce your skin, and the player's like, what? Roll for combat. Give me just a second, guys. And then you pop open a book, put them in front of you, and you're like, all right, let's do this.
Because any GM out there has had this situation happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
if you
having
haven't,
the
you will
tools to
soon.
just, God, these tools allow you to roll with it so much easier than they did historically. So I'm going to go one level deeper because this is really why it made my list.
Okay.
So having a functional, immediate group of ancestries to just like react with in real time, that's great. But aren't they all kind of like, are all, where's my dwarf? We're on lizard folk right now. Are all lizard folk scouts kind of the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. But guess what? The game mastery guide from pre-remastered, they give you an NPC gallery. It's like 40 pages worth of specialized NPCs. You can pull from these as well. And just to name a few, courtiers of the court, courtiers, thank you. Criminals, devotees. Wow, I can't talk. Downtrodden, explorers, foresters, healers, laborers, magistrates, mercenaries, mystics, officers, performers, publicans, not the other kind, but that kind, scholars, seafarers, tradespeople, and villains, whatever that means. So these are like, if you want grandma to not just be a gnome with a weakened or maybe with an elite, 15th level as an elite rather than a basic 15 level. So that's another, 5-degree shift that we can do really, really quick because it's in the book. But maybe she's also a scholar. Boom, she's already here.
Yep.
And I have my charts to just like in less than a minute, grandma's got a stat block that's unique to her.
And what I want to stress here is that when you're doing this on the fly creation of an NPC, only create the numbers that are being asked for in the moment.
Right. While still knowing where the ones that are about to be asked for can be reached.
Don't stop the game and be like, all right, let me create this entire stat block for this thing. Just be like, okay, I've got the book open in front of me. She rolls to attack. She bonks you on the head, and then you literally just grab that number, jot it down, rolls to attack. We're good to go.
Sure.
And then when they ask her questions or they try to convince her of something or they try to pickpocket her, they try to do something like that, you'll be like, pause. Check the book section. Okay, her DC's this. Go.
Yeah. And all of those stars belong on the GM screen. Like when I custom do my GM screen, they're going to be there like in an index card.
We should make a GSR GM screen.
We're going to have to because as you and I put together these silly little videos that like 3 people watch, we're learning the things we didn't realize we were learning because now we have to talk about it. It's the learn one, do one, teach one kind of mentality we're wandering into because by the end of this entire Goblin Salvage Rights series, we should all be brain surgeons at that point, and we can cut people open because we'll know how to do it.
Goblin brain surgeons.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to work on. Believe it or not.
And
they
got
big
heads,
up and small brains.
They're still verbs.
Absolutely.
So my number 2 of my top 5 is just ancestries in general because there's so many of them in here, and as a GM, they empower you to tell lightning quick stories that just go sideways because they always do.
I was not expecting this, Eric. I was not expecting
Neither was I. In my first and second top 5 lists that I put together, I was uninspired with those lists because I picked literal monsters that I thought were cool. But then I realized there were like categories going on in this book and ways players can use this book, ways GMs can use this book, way both of them can use it together. And ancestries is a big, big, big part of it. Certainly more so than the undead were-creature template. More so than the category of the Dominion of the Black, and more so than the singular creature called the Colo. So and then my number 1 surprised the hell out of me too. But you get to do number 1 first.
Okay, all right. If you haven't picked up on the foreshadowing yet, goblins, I think
I know what it is.
I think you should.
It has to be.
It's dragons. It's got to be dragons, bro.
Dragons. Any dragon in particular?
Okay.
All dragons, every dragons. Do you have a favorite?
My notes on this are so long. I rank ordered the dragons by most to least favorite because I knew I couldn't just pick one. So I rank ordered them
I actually want to hear this.
Find my favorite.
Most to least favorite.
So to catch the goblins up at home, the biggest change to this book,
arguably dragons, sure,
is dragons.
Yeah, because again, the orc license happened earlier last year. Time is a flat circle.
But what happened basically is that
I just got done watching that.
D&D owns dragons that have colors.
Mhm.
That we've got the metallic colors, which are good guys, and we've got the chromatic regular colors, which are bad guys, like red dragons and green dragons.
Right.
So
Wait, what's the difference? Crayons.
one's red and has acid breath. Green and red dragons spit fire.
And red dragons always live in volcanoes.
That's
Next.
volcanoes. No albinism here. The albino
An albino red dragon
is the most classic joke in all of D&D.
This is my first time hearing it. Man,
What?
I am unattached to
Wow.
what the kids are
All
doing on my lawn.
anyway, so what Pathfinder has done is they've taken dragons as a concept and broken them, stratified them across the 4 pillars of magic in Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Sure, to start with, absolutely.
So we have a grouping of arcane dragons. We have a grouping of primal dragons. We have a grouping of divine dragons. We have a grouping of occult dragons. With that as their main framework, we've ended up with some very interesting styles of dragons. This isn't a definitive list. They mention things like sky metal dragons.
Yeah, sidebars have some extra ones in there.
Oh my God. The one thing I love about the dragons entry is there is a constant sidebar on all of the dragon pages because they were cramming so much stuff.
It's almost like they dubbed the dragon section in this book.
They really did. So my list from favorite to least favorite.
I'm listening.
It's a page.
It's Page Dragon.
Page Dragon. I've been flipping to it the whole time.
Yep.
So my list, here's all the dragons rank ordered into my favorite. First and foremost, it's the Fortune Dragon.
Really?
The dragon
I wouldn't have called that.
Who hoards magical items and absorbs their power.
It's yeah.
Next up is the Conspirator Dragon.
100%. Yeah, that's one of my
The dragon that can turn into other people very easily, can manipulate people's thoughts and emotions.
Yep.
They're the human that turns into a dragon later on in the series.
Sure.
That kind of thing. Third is the Adamantine Dragon.
Yep.
Big Chungo.
Yep.
What's interesting about Adamantine dragons is that
he's the Rhino Dragon.
The Rhino Dragon. The interesting thing here is that he's one of the sky metal dragons. They are sky metal dragons, which means that there are dragons with a natural connection to metal or gems.
Right.
This is one of many kinds of sky metal dragons. We'll probably be seeing more sky metal dragons in the future.
Yeah, and this is the only time I'm going to cut you off here. You mentioned that the dragons have now been sort of like broadly categorized into the 4 traditions, arcane, primal, divine, and occult. But there's other subdivisions as well. Sky metal is one of those subdivisions. Yeah.
And sky metal dragons aren't necessarily primal dragons,
right?
Like the adult adamantine dragon.
Yeah. So there's definitely a Venn diagram thing going on here. So it's not like all red dragons are X or all green dragons are Y.
Next up on my list of favorites is the Omen Dragon.
Oh, you're picking the good ones.
Omen Dragon is like a fortune-telling dragon. There's definitely, I love the art for the Omen Dragon. It has a lot of like, I want to say Japanese or Chinese, Eastern.
It has an Eastern
aesthetic,
100%.
Love that. They're basically dragon fortune tellers in a world where fortune no longer exists truly.
It exists as broken.
It exists as broken.
It's hugely unreliable. Yeah.
Next up is the Horned Dragon.
Yeah,
which is like
the classic green dragon.
Well, it looks like a classic green dragon, but it's really supposed to be more of like a bestial dragon that's connected to nature. This one's obviously green, but they depict that there's a lot of different kind of horned dragons all over the world in different environments. They
got it. I must have just read the swamp entry and
so they blend into their environments naturally and magically. And they become one with their environments. They often protect their environments.
God, all the different environments. Yeah.
What I love about them is that they have this unique flavor to them. You expect them to, because they're bestial.
Sure.
You expect them to be brutish.
Right.
And mean.
Yeah. They charge you and they gore you with their rhino horn.
But actually, they're not.
Right.
They love combat as a way of challenging each other in competition. They are generally competitive and have a fixation. Sorry, they are generally contemplative. ADHD meets dyslexia.
Contemplative. Got it.
And have a fixation on knowledge and self-discipline. Traits belied by their bestial appearance. What I love here is the inversions of our assumptions.
Sure.
A lot of these dragons have like assumption inversions that we're not expecting.
Right.
Obviously, so the Mirage Dragon is up next. Mirage Dragon is kind of like a water-looking dragon. They're
Mhm.
a narcissistic, self-absorbed dragon, a
Yep.
Sisyphean dragon, if you will.
Sisyphus.
And then we have
Look at you with the $20 words.
my least favorite dragons are the ones from the planes of existence. So Imperial and Diabolic.
Sure.
They're the divine dragons. There's going to be one dragon of each of the spheres of the outer areas, blah,
Sure.
blah, blah.
Right.
I like that idea. Like, I don't get me wrong. I think it's a cool idea.
Mhm.
But to me, it's the least inspired. All the other ones are so unique. I've never heard of dragons like this before.
Right.
I haven't read the Dragon book by Seifter and the guys.
Man, you're
over
stealing
at-
my thunder. I was about to segue
yeah,
there.
yeah. I haven't read that book.
Uh-huh.
If you guys are watching or a fan of theirs is watching and you want to get a hold of them, we'll review the book.
Yeah.
I'll read it.
I've got it on my shelf. So
well, you do? You own them?
If you guys are interested in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, specifically Battle Zoo content, you need to let us know because we sort of default to Paizo stuff.
Yeah.
But
There's just
I
so
love
much
the
of
Paizo
it,
system
like,
that if anybody else is doing it, including Pathfinder Infinite materials, you need to let us know because I don't want to inundate people with crap they don't want to see.
Like exactly, like I don't like. To me, I wouldn't as a player. I'm not really super interested in third party stuff most of the time because
there's so much first party stuff.
There's so much first party stuff. Like I'm swimming in an ocean. You're telling me there's another ocean over there.
Yeah.
Let me drink from this one first.
I know you listen to these 45 bands, but I got these other 30 over here you need to check out.
But like Seifter is like, designed the game practically. So if anyone can write a good third party material, it's him.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's my tier list, and also just all of the dragons that they've invented. So they've taken the idea of dragons, removed these pure elemental influences, and designed in a space that's actually interesting.
Yeah.
Going back to my favorites, the Fortune, Conspirator, and Adamantine dragons, these kind of represent the three major directions that they go in the design space. So the Fortune dragon is unlike anything I ever expected a dragon to be like. The art itself is
that's
so
the one that wanders around in like Ustalov or the Eye of the Dread region.
So each of the dragons have a named dragon in the sidebar, which I love.
Yeah.
This one is named
goes way back.
Lathilis, initially drawn to these fucking words, Calfiuac Mountains of New Thassalon, on the northwestern Avestan by magical power of ancient rune lords. The fortune dragon Lathalis spent several decades gathering magical artifacts. During Earthfall, long
He's been around a
fucking
while.
time ago, one of these artifacts activated, locking Lathalis in a magical stasis that only broke millennia later. They now spend much of their time traveling the region to track down magical relics and their collection and learn more about the modern world. So like the only thing I could think of is like maybe a blue dragon would do the only it's very hard to draw similarities to the old chromatic dragons here.
Right.
And that's what I love.
Yeah, I'm going to say exactly what you said, but I'm going to use Erikian words. They used to be general and they were made specific.
Right.
And specific always trumps general. Continue what you're saying because I want to loop back to that at the end of this conversation because that's one of the things I wanted to say up front, but I was rambling for 30 minutes and I didn't.
So adamantine and sky metal dragons are just cool as fuck. It's just a cool idea.
Sure.
I love the idea of
that's like Bahamut from Final Fantasy VII,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
And I love the idea of dragon armor, like, defeating a giant dragon and using its armor scales as armor. Adamantine dragon hide armor sounds like the coolest 10-year-old idea I've ever had in my life. And if I was a player in this world and I was like a dragon slayer, you know what I mean? Like that would be the
sewing kit
of armor. Exactly. And now we have rules. We have literal feats in the game for using monsters to craft items.
Monster hunters.
That just all comes together.
It really does. Yeah.
Narratively speaking, Conspirator is probably the coolest just because they have all the tools you need to create a interesting social BBEG that ends up being a very badass enemy at the end of the day. The top end ancient Conspirator dragon is a level 17. So that's a pure capstone right there. Or they don't have to be evil. They could, we could have a Conspirator dragon in Absalom who ends up being one of the leaders, but is hiding their dragonness from everyone. You know,
Sure.
Because we've gotten rid of alignment, none of these dragons are necessarily good or evil.
Mhm.
You know, even the Mirage dragon, who's inherently narcissistic,
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean that they're evil. There are good people who are
Sure.
narcissistic. You know what I mean? It's hard to imagine, but at the end of the day, their tendencies doesn't necessarily preclude them to evil necessarily. You know what I mean?
I am not qualified enough to argue one way or the other.
Oh, okay, sure. But this is the kind of thing that I'm getting at. They've redesigned dragons,
Mhm.
and in combination with alignment dropping away and edicts and anathemas becoming kind of the way we understand people's mentality,
Mhm.
There's just so much untested space here.
Right.
I'm just
It blows up the design space for sure, and it takes what we just create. We presume these monolithic interpretations of groupings of dragons.
Mhm.
You know, all blue dragons will have these same 3 behavior types. But that's not what's going on here when you're talking about the horn dragon.
I need a fucking statue of these guys, dude. That would be
Oh,
so
the
sick.
miniatures these guys are going to be pumping out over the next few years.
I'm
Yeah,
hyped.
dragons are going to be fun again.
I'm hyped.
You mentioned something earlier I want to come back to. The idea of the, what was it you said? Like the planar dragons, the angel dragons, the demon dragons,
Yeah.
those guys, and how they didn't seem to be, they didn't tickle your fancy in the thematic sense.
Mhm.
What I found about a lot of these dragons, in particular those, and I'm thinking of the Imperial dragon when I say this, is that what he is?
Mhm. Yep.
What does that say, Fortune? Is he Imperial?
No, he's Imperial. He's right there. So what's
There he
weird
is,
about
yeah.
the book is because they crammed all the pages together.
The headings
photo-
don't match the artwork.
Yeah, the photo and the stat block are not next to each other, which
Yeah.
I understand from a design space. There's so much moving.
The special
parts.
abilities they have to sling around in combat
Mhm.
are emblematic of where they come from. So in the
Absolutely.
case of the Imperial Dragon, there's this cheesy as fuck looking halo over their head.
Yeah.
And I hated it when I
Halo
first saw the
Pulse
artwork.
is
But
an
then I
action.
realized they can pick it up and throw it like one of those frisbees with the middle hollowed out.
Yeah.
And it'll create like a auras of effect and other things. They're literally taking their physicality that is emblematic of the region of reality they come from, and they are leveraging it in not a metaphysical way, but in a physical way. It's having immediate physical impacts on the combat state. So it's super video gamey, and normally that would bug the shit out of me. But dragons get a pass when it comes to that. I don't feel like I have a sense of verisimilitude with the idea of these guys running around. I pick up my halo off my head and then I toss it 50 feet that way, and all the little leshies inside are doing their song and dance because they're safe, right? And I'm like, I love Final Fantasy with all of my heart. I do, but it's cheesy as fuck, and there's no sense of verisimilitude there. It's not the Matrix to me.
That's a you problem.
I can't get that Matrix. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because I didn't grow up in a in an era of a certain type of popular media being sort of like the imaginative norm, the go-to, the default setting.
I watched Crow recently, and that's what you grew up with, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say grow up with, but I was definitely in high school, and that's,
that influenced you heavily.
I learned all of my influential shit in middle high school.
Got it.
So, were you done with dragons? Because I had one more thing about it.
I'm done with dragons.
Okay.
Yeah, they're dope as fuck.
The idea of the specific trumps general. Dragons were general before.
Oh my gosh!
Now they're a lot more specific.
I just noticed there's a face.
Yeah,
there's a face on
this.
the top of the conspirator dragon.
It's a fucking face.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that until
so
just
many
now.
cool little like
Easter
looky
eggs.
details in the artwork.
Little Eastie
and
boys.
just the angularity.
Oh,
because that's what the Balor horns used to look like in their art. They didn't like curve upwards.
What's
like
interesting
traditional
about the
devil horns.
diabolic dragons is, in my opinion, they've kind of taken the place of the Balor, because if you read their entry, they literally are generals.
Yeah, they're Balor steeds
of Balor,
or whatever they're called now, Varacali.
They're not steeds; they are the generals.
They can be, right.
Oh yeah.
They're given leave to be generals
Yeah.
and command armies, but the Balors, they command them.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Balors aren't in this book. Maybe they're not a thing anymore.
They're Varacali or whatever the
Oh,
fuck they're
yeah,
called.
okay.
Yeah, they redid Balors so that they don't get sued. But getting back to the idea of specific trumping general, yes, the dragons do that. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. But the dragon hordes do that themselves.
Yeah.
If you walk into a D&D dragon horde, how can you tell the difference between a green dragon horde and a blue dragon horde? You kind of can't.
What I love about this book is they describe every dragon type has their lair, which describes
layers
their
and
style
hordes
of
were the two
horde.
I was going for.
Exactly. And then they describe a famous living dragon of this type.
Here's
in
an
the
example.
world.
It's like an iconic.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
we have Valeros, the fighter iconic of Pathfinder. we've got them for these individual critters here. I forget which one it was. Which was the narcissistic dragon you were talking about?
That was the Mirage.
Was that Mirage?
Yeah.
Pull up the Mirage real quick. So the Mirage dragon lair has treasure in it, right? Every single solitary piece of treasure in there is shined to a mirror sheen so that they can see reflections of themselves, and it fucks with the eyes and the visual acuity of anybody who comes through there. And it creates this sense of illusion. And they like to layer in like lakes and other reflective areas. So the layer itself is specific to the creature within it. Where before, blue dragons are in deserts and bad lands.
It's an interesting reflection. Of the
and it's specific. So like if you wander into that layer and you never see this dragon at all anywhere in the campaign, ever, period. That was probably a Mirage dragon layer you wandered into. And that kind of specificity
is
I
amazing.
Love that.
My favorite lair is the Omen dragon lairs.
Remind me which one that one was.
They have a multiple layers scattered all over in different places.
Right.
With odd items. And the idea is that if you find an Omen, in my mind at least, my headcanon, if you find an Omen dragon's lair and they're not there, you were meant to find it and plunder that lair, because whatever random item that is in the pile, you're going to need for
it's a possible
endeavor.
Future because of
you
the
know
omens.
What I mean? Exactly.
I love that. That was cool. Yeah. I'm usually not big on like prophecy in fantasy fiction. I've traditionally hated it in the same way that I hate time travel in sci-fi stories.
As a guy who just finished watching Dune 2, I have to ask why.
Dune is a piece of literary work.
Okay.
And, most commercial sci-fi fantasy, at least traditionally, maybe these days it's gotten significantly better because that's how genres work over time. But it's just, it was so lazily tropey for so many years.
Okay, got it.
Whether it was in comics, in novels, in TV shows. And I'm so fucking tired of hearing about the tachyon explanation in Star Trek to answer everything. It's a MacGuffin. It becomes a MacGuffin. Gotcha. We don't need to explain this shit. It just is. It's tachyon particles.
I love the idea. I love the story of like the protagonist who says he's not the messiah of the thing, begrudgingly denying that he is, but just like in Dune 2, you know what I mean? Like begrudgingly saying he's not the messiah, blah, 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 blah. But then the followers say, no, you did this thing. It's preordained. Doing that to some players.
Yeah. Muad'Dib becomes a real son of a bitch through the series. Yeah. And it's, I wonder if we're going to get that far in the movies. I haven't seen the second one yet.
Oh,
but
no
when he becomes like God Emperor of Dune, we're in for a treat.
No
if that actor can pull it off.
No spoilers.
The series has been out for like 60 years.
That doesn't mean you haven't, plenty of people haven't read it though. I've never read.
There needs to be a statute of limitations on spoilers. If I say that the Death Star in Star Wars fucking blew up, I don't want anybody giving me shit because I said that.
All right, give me your number one, Eric.
So last thing was the Infernal Dragon. Their lair. Infernal Dragons are big. They're brawny traditionally. They're beasts and right toxic masculinity.
Okay,
but their layers are like there's nothing there.
Oh yeah, they're tiny.
They're empty. They're tiny. They're small.
Soul shards and pieces of contracts that have yet to be in
So dragons are cool, but when dragon layers and dragon hordes get involved, it's a triple threat of a Venn diagram that creates individual, unique, interesting monsters. So my number one, feel free to laugh. It's okay. I've earned it by now. It's not a monster. It's not a creature.
Oh my God. Look at you playing the meta game.
I feel like we should be trading hats.
You want to trade the hats?
You're like on this page number and that page number. and I'm like, no, look at all the cool like ways you can manipulate this shit. So the creature by types table. Can you find that real quick?
What? You can't choose a table,
I
Eric?
absolutely can, and I fucking did. And I'll tell you why.
God. Creature by types table.
Yeah.
All right. You're going to have to pitch this one hard for a number one.
Okay. Well, since you are sort of like a...
Oh my God. I didn't even see this.
I didn't see that either. That artwork is legit.
The back of the book art at the very back, because I've been on PDF the whole time. That is beautiful. Anyway, so jeez, we just got knocked.
So as a young budding GM, I'm hoping you can appreciate where I'm going to go with this. Creature by type, not level.
Creature by type?
Yeah. It's specifically not level for the point I'm going to make. Anyhow, when you find it, let me know.
All right.
So, okay, creatures by type table. Here's what's on the table.
Yep.
Aberrations, animals, astral, beast, celestial, construct, dragon, elemental, fae, fiend, fungus, giant, humanoid, monitor, ooze, plant, spirit, Tane, Tane, of which there is one example in this book.
The Bandersnatch.
The Bandersnatch, right? So Lewis Carroll type critters. and undead. Okay. Those are the creatures by type.
Yeah.
When you look at this table and go, all right, I want to write an adventure. Okay. It's going to be a Fae-based adventure. All right. Well, I've got this 300 to 400 page book. Where are the Fae in there? Tell me what pages the Fae are on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, what levels are they on once you have the page numbers? Fuck, I forgot. Let me go back and look through. It's super fucking disjointed. Remember when the way you and I used to talk so much shit when the Pathfinder 2nd Edition core rulebook first came out, and we're like, I can't navigate this fucking thing. I don't know how it's organized.
That's a good point.
This table, you can build a campaign at a glance. You can look at like all the Fae as they go up from levels 1 through 20, whatever examples they have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on a table. It's
right here. Yeah. Level -1.
It's a table that looks like this, and it's a lot cleaner than this. But yeah, that's a good summary of it. No, it's a creature.
Am I not good enough for you, Erik?
Maybe that is it. I'm looking at it upside down, and I'm always stupid when I look at things upside down. So yeah, let's take that.
Yeah.
So for instance, going back to one of your examples on your list, the Shining Ones. You sold me on the Shining Ones. That was really interesting. So immediately I thought quietly to myself, because this is already a 6-hour video. What would that look like? What would a campaign with Shining Ones look like? What are the tags? The traits. I got called out on that once, and I'm still salty about it.
They're tags.
Yeah. What kind of tags do they have? How do you make a Shining One story? Well, what other creatures are like the Shining Ones? Look them up.
This is gonna take me a while.
They're astral.
They're astral. Oh,
there's only one.
Oh, they're by themselves.
You know how long I would have taken to try to work my way through what a Shining One storyline would look like? There's fucking nothing to go with them, and they're level 12.
One is the loneliest
Go to Fae.
number that you'll ever
Because Fae
do.
are common as fuck. They're everywhere. We have Winter Court. We have Autumn Court. We have Summer Court. We've got Harry Dresden. We've got, the Arthurian tales, if you add the Fae shit in there. Irish shit. Just read them off real quick. Just the names.
Okay. Mitflick. Springjack. Sprite. Tooth Fairy. Pugwampy. Jinkin. Naiad. Draxy Dryad.
Don't know what the fuck these are? It doesn't matter.
Tooth Fairy Swarm. Twigjack Unicorn. Pixie Satyr Redcap Elenix. Naiad Queen Pugwangi. Knuckle Larvae. Glimmerling Dryad Queen. Vilda Raven. And finally,
I was hoping you would get to that.
Norn.
Okay, right. So that was like around 20, right?
Sure, yeah.
I heard you say 2 interesting things in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know these names. I didn't even know what levels they were. You
Yeah.
just gave me the names, but you said one was a queen and one was a lady or something? Yeah. Wow, that sounds like a BBEG and their lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well,
Absolutely.
my guys are level 1, and you can't start with those guys. Wait a minute, didn't you rattle off like 6 to 8 between level -1 and like 3? Those are my low-level critters. Okay, I have those. Oh, look, I've got the names, I've got the levels, I've got all of the fucking Fae in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if I wanted to tell an undead Fae story? Where are the undead?
Right next.
Look at
the
them.
next fucking
There's
paragraph,
probably
yeah.
like 20 of them as well. So this is a really super easy tool for players to talk about their character's background. My character is a farmer whose mother got slaughtered and dad got press ganged in orc service and the farm got burned, right? The most common story there is in fantasy fantasy fiction.
Yeah.
But I wanted to have a Fae and an undead bent. I wanted to have a Tane and a demon bent. I wanted to have a Clippeth and a something else bent.
Right.
Just take 2 separate categories of creatures and then write your fucking background. If you're a GM, write your fucking adventure or campaign or book or supplement or whatever. And like the ascension of power as you go from level -1 all the way to 20 in some of these cases, you look at a paragraph of text in this book and you're looking at a campaign at a glance. It's at a fucking glance. Because some of these we just know. We know what a vampire is. We know what a skeleton is. We know what a white is. We may not know what the Ormodornorganung is. These weird, stupid names that don't have friendly names to go with them. We know what nightmares are.
Right.
We know what they are. So at a glance information that covers the power levels -1 through 25 in the case of Tree Raiser.
Yep.
Fucking Tree Raiser. When you look at the demon section, Tree Raiser is the highest DC,
So
the highest level
creatures by level right next to it. I think,
and they have creatures by level next to it if you want to like mix all the types
Yeah.
and just get the power level.
Tree Raiser's level 25.
Yeah. So like if I want to tell a Tree Raiser story, well, Tree Raiser is probably in the demon section. And I look at all the demons in there. Well, demons are great because they involve different kinds of sin and I can focus on different kinds of sin on the way to Tree Razor. Tree Razor is a demon.
They're in the fiend section.
In the fiend section, right?
Yeah,
Chaotic evil in the old days. And it's just this part of the book. This is my number one because that's the most useful 2 or 3 pages in this entire book for me. It's not my favorite.
So again, I'm showing my age of being a young DM, kind of getting stronger and stronger. Is this not something that existed in another D&D book? Really?
You had to dig.
Really?
In Pathfinder Bestiary, yes. In first edition, I don't know. I don't remember.
Gotcha.
But like,
it's new to you. It's probably new to
tables.
most people.
Yeah. And of course, now that we have all these awesome online tools like Mimic Fight Club, you can find that shit really quick. I don't know if you can do it that way. You can do it that way through Archives of Nethys, right?
And they all have tags. So
you search by tags. Yeah.
I got to make a video on how to use
But that's not at a glance. This is at a glance. You can see like 8 different categories of creatures without flipping a page with your hands in your pants.
First level, the B1 has creatures by type right here.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was a second edition thing that they started or if this Paizo's been doing this all along. Regardless, for Monster Core, my number one has to be creatures by type table because I use it as a player. I use it as a GM. And even as a collector, it's...
Look how sun-bleached this bestiary spine is.
It's got some love. I'm surprised it still has a spine.
Yeah, that's true. Well, those first...
It's not a player book, so...
That's true. Yeah, it's true. I own
player
this
books are all fucked.
For, I own this for posterity.
So while you're looking for that, I'm just going to go back over my top 5. I picked the Colo. They used to be gnolls. I liked them for anthropological reasons. They humanized them. Number 4 is Dominion of the Black. It's a broad category of Lovecraftian, unknowable, crazy, insanity-inducing beasts from beyond time and space. Number 3 is the undead were-creature templates you can apply to all the other beasties. My number 2 is the ancestries in general because I need that dwarf stat or that gnome stat or that lizard folk stat. And I need different kinds of those ancestries. It's quick, easy at a glance. And my number 1 is creatures by type table because you can write an entire campaign with your hands in your pockets just by looking at it. And that's power.
So I just got done looking at the Bestiary 1. Very slight but important difference here.
Sure. What is it?
The Bestiary 1 has an Appendix 8 monsters by type. But the monsters, like let's say under the aberration category, are not organized or subcategorized by level.
Okay.
They're only categorized by their name. So Aboleth, Choker, Chol, Cloaker, Dark Naga, Drider, so on and so forth.
That's gross. Especially with the names that are unique and nobody remembers them.
Yeah.
So it's all consonants.
In my mind, this one is far more usable than the other in the way that you're describing. And I'm beginning to understand the shift here in mindset and why you're so excited. Because to me, I would assume as someone who only uses like the internet and Archives of Nethys and stuff like that, I would assume that all the stuff would be available to you in a book, but it's not.
Right.
It's really not.
Yeah. Presentation it matters.
Presentation.
Yeah. Having content is only as useful as your ability to access it.
Absolutely. So to go over my top 5, Shining Child, Vil the Raven, Rune Giants, Clippeths, but specifically the Oganagar, and then finally it's the dragons.
So I'm super happy. I knew dragons were going to make your list. That's why I left them off of mine.
But specifically the Fortune Dragon is my favorite out of all of them.
Yeah, I think of all the dragons, mine is it's either the Conspirator Dragon or the Fortune Dragon. That really? The Fortune Dragon has I just love the idea of like all of my shit I absorb through osmosis. It becomes of me. And it's got that super punk aesthetic of people who like super pierce their lips and pierce their noses and pierce all their eyebrows. Yeah. And they've got more metal in their fucking head. Than
they have literal swords piercing their lips as a form
and it's
of
part of their collections.
Yeah.
And then over time, the heat that their body generates just kind of melts it and it just sort of becomes of their scales. Yeah. So part of the illustration is just like melted gold on the tail.
It's so cool.
Like what did that look like before it melted? Was it cool. Was it a jaguar?
Or was it just gold coins? You know what I mean? Like
was it literally coins? Yeah, like Smaug.
I love the difference in the cover art of the Bestiary 1.
It's the same creatures for the most part.
In the background, in the foreground, we have 2 trolls, which stayed the same.
Standard ass trolls.
Standard trolls. but the creatures surrounding them, I think, are highly representative of the shift to remastered.
Right.
And I want to end the podcast on a note of this note, because I think
Sure.
it kind of perfectly encapsulates the shift change that we're experiencing in remastered. The foreground little monsters in the first edition one are the kobolds in their new design. In the remastered book, they're a bunch of mushroom-headed leshies.
Yeah.
And behind all of those creatures, in the bestiary one is a hydra, a 5-headed hydra, and behind the troll is an adamantine fucking dragon, baby.
Yep. Dragons are fun again.
It's so representative of like where we've come, avoiding the dragons for fear of a lawsuit or whatever, to right and center.
We got dragons too, bitch.
We've got dragons too, and they're way cooler than yours.
Yeah.
Said it here. Said it here, folks.
All right.
I think that's a good pod, man. I think it's a good place to end it.
I'm happy with that.
Awesome,
I'm glad we did this one.
Thanks so much for joining us, Goblins. As always, check out the Patreon. Check out our Discord. Dope Discord. People are joining it every day. It's awesome. It's growing really fast, actually.
Yep. It's awesome. We're awesome. You're awesome. Let's be awesome together.
Yeah. But more importantly, as always,
keep it weird.
Keep it weird.